working, or is it
Nope,
just waiting to come
it
in?
will.
There it is.
Right on. All right, let's open up this town council meeting for May 4th. Please stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Randy. Excuse me. All you, Twyla.
All right, roll call. Counselor Albert?
Here.
Counselor Colby?
Here.
Counselor Ganong?
Here.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Here.
Counselor Ward?
Here.
Counselor Lunt?
Here.
Counselor Fellows?
Here.
Trying to find my unmute button.
Next item.
All right. Under Good News and Recognition, Order 2021-96, we need a motion to adopt the following National Kids to Parks Day proclamation. And I'll read it as soon as we get a motion.
I got
I'll
the motion.
second.
I got the second, Twyla.
All right, and it reads as follows. Whereas Kids to Parks Day is a national day of outdoor play celebrated annually on the third Saturday of May, which this year falls on May 15th, 2021. The day connects kids and families with their local, state, and national parks and public lands. Whereas May 15th, 2021 is Lisbon's local Fish and Derby Day at Beaver Park. And whereas COVID-19 has impacted everyone and has limited our ability to interact with our beloved national, local, and state parks. With this in mind, this year the town desires to offer in-person and virtual fishing experiences. Our hope is to encourage families nationwide to celebrate the day at local parks and public lands with their household groups or established COVID buddies, focusing on close-to-home outdoor spaces and experiences. Now, therefore, the Lisbon Town Council does hereby proclaim May 15, 2021 as Kids to Parks Day, acknowledging that due to COVID restrictions, the Lisbon Town Council is encouraging all residents to celebrate the day at local parks and public lands with their household groups or established COVID buddies. The vote?
All in favor?
7-0. Order passed.
How does that virtual work? Somebody catch a bunch of sunnies for me when
I don't know. The man's right out there. Mark. Mark.
No rest for the weary there, Mark.
Yeah, but they said you were going first. Question?
Just interested on. I heard Twyla mention for the
Virtual
National
fishing.
Youth Day, the virtual fishing, virtual experience. How are we pulling that off? I'm just curious.
What we did last year, and what people did was they were able to fish anywhere, not just Beaver Park.
Okay.
And then they post their catch on our Facebook page. And then we have whoever gets the most likes got a great certificate to Frank's Restaurant.
Ooh.
20 wings or something like that. It's crazy.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good. That's good question to ask.
Yeah,
I'm glad
and
everybody knows.
we don't discriminate, so all ages, Norm.
Perfect. I'll be sure to put. I'm going to have the biggest sunfish there is to catch. I'm sure of it.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Any other good news or recognition tonight, guys? Hearing none, moving right along, Twyla.
Next is your public hearing. Once the chair opens the public hearing, those present who wish to speak may enter the room and approach the lectern one individual at a time and address the chair. Please use the microphone and state your name for the record. And for those listening from Town Hall live video streaming, you are now invited to send written comments by emailing award@lisbonme.org. School budget and school capital improvement plan.
Nobody in the wing there with you, right, Mark? I'll open the public hearing. I have nothing on my email either. But,
Okay.
Again, for anybody that's listening in the general public, if there's a question on this or concern afterwards, I will gladly read it into the record before the end of the meeting. That said, you guys want the floor associated with your presentation. Let's close the public hearing and move forward with your presentation, guys.
Okay. Good evening. The Lisbon School Department budget, which was adopted by the school committee on May 3rd, 2021, has changed since originally being developed in February. Through careful analysis and conversations, the current budget has been decreased by $562,618, or 7.4%, since originally being shared with the school committee in February, and an additional $345,457, or 4.6%, since being presented to you in March. As you can see from the figures on the subsidy comparison report, the April 28th, 2021, the total increase to local taxes and the overall budget have decreased as a result of the use of the America Relief Funds as revenue. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that tonight. I'm going to go over the presentation. I've shared with you, I sent you a PDF of the presentation that I gave to you in March with the updated numbers. And I also shared, I know that that it was asked the percentages in regard to each year, state subsidy, local contribution, and total budget. And so you have a separate page that has that on there as well. Although additional ARF funds will be used to provide instruction and infrastructure support, the Lisbon School Department is well aware that these funds will not be available in the future, and we will continue to look closely at our student enrollment numbers and COVID-19 related needs moving forward in future budgets, etc. Over the last 14 months, the Lisbon School Department has battled through the pandemic and been able to bring our students back to full in-person instruction for all but just a few weeks after the holiday break. I cannot emphasize enough how proud I am of the effort and dedication that our staff, students, and school committee have put forward to make this year as normal as it can be. With that being said, I wanted to share that this week is National Staff Appreciation Week, and I would like to take a moment to publicly recognize and thank all of our staff for their amazing efforts. The Lisbon and Lisbon Falls communities have something to be very proud of, in my opinion, as this school department was one of the very few who have been able to successfully and safely bring students and staff back into our buildings. Just to give you an example, I know most of you probably don't watch our school committee meetings, but I've used my own daughter's school as an example, and throughout the entire year, she would have been in school 75 days. Probably a month ago when I reported to the school committee, our kids were already at 130, 140. So my daughter's school, fortunately, is one of the very few schools in Cumberland County that has gone back to full in-person, and last week was her first 5 days of school all year. So some of our staff, some of our families learned what hybrid learning looks like after the holiday break, and they were very quick to tell us that isn't what they were interested in. So I want to thank the families as well for supporting us and understanding that we are being forced to follow close contact tracing guidelines and stuff that are being sent down by the DOE. And to be honest, there's a lot of conflicting information between the CDC and the DOE. Depends on who you call, so we just keep calling until we get the right person that gives me the answer that we want. So, and that is the truth.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
I believe this is National Teacher Recognition Day or Week.
Yep, that's what I just said, yep.
So we should also recognize the good job that the teachers and everybody else supporting them have done.
Yep, that's what I meant by national staff appreciation. A lot of times I know it's national teachers or whatever, but we spread it out because everybody has something to do with this. And so every day in the next few weeks, there's probably a national, I know lunch lady day is coming up. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, so we, as I said, I'm very proud of our staff. Been through a lot. They're tired. They've worked harder than they've ever worked. And the kids are benefiting from it. If you saw our couple of school committee meetings ago, the data on our testing, our students are at or above and have definitely excelled throughout this. But I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that they are in a controlled environment. They are in front of a person every day as much as possible. And hopefully we can get through these next few weeks. Traditionally, these last few weeks go really quick. So I know luckily days like today when it's cool out, it's not a big deal, but as soon as it starts getting into the 70s and 80s, these buildings get a little bit uncomfortable. So with that being said, again, I want to thank everybody for all their hard work and dedication, and I can't say that enough because I know that right before April break, a lot of people were right at the very ends of their means when it came to this. I updated that 10-year historical graph. You'll see the updated figures, and I've also included the increases and decreases as far as percentages go. That's in a separate page. I think it's after the slide, after the presentation itself, so you'll be able to see those percentages and compare what the increases are compared to other years. Overall, this budget will have the second lowest increase to the local taxes during this 10-year span, outside of obviously the 2 years that we had decreases. But it is important to know that it's a direct result of the use of the ARF funds that will need to be closely monitored moving forward, because when I go through this, I'll explain. I didn't want to create a huge cliff, and that's a term that we use in the school departments, that when you use a lot of revenue and you build a budget on it and then the next year it's gone, you have to not only raise the taxes, because our annual yearly just salaries alone is close to $450,000. So if I were to take all that money and use it to offset this year's budget, then next year you're creating it close to $1 million, so or $800,000+ increase. So it's a huge cliff that you have to be careful of. Again, the documents that I've shared include the updated slides to my March presentation, which I'll go over quickly because I know you've already heard it, but I just wanted to share it for the public. As I was reminded that there may be some people, this is the first time they're hearing anything about the school budget. And I'll be obviously happy to answer any questions at the end. So in your packets, you have a copy of the slide presentation with the notes. And so what I wanted to talk about is the first page is probably the most important and has most of the numbers on it. So the ED 279 that we received in January, those numbers haven't changed. And the recommendations in this budget, which maintains all existing programs and services, includes an overall budget increase of 2.5%, or $448,345 on the total budget, adult education and the school budget. The total budget, including adult education, is $18,119,877. The local funding amount, including adult education, is $7,790,575, which would result in about a 3% or $230,000 increase in the local taxes. As I've shared over and over again, Lisbon School Department has over 300 people, and when you look at the budget summary review that hasn't changed, that was the initial budget summary review report from February 5th, you'll see that the majority of our increases are directly related to salaries and benefits. And those are all been negotiated, and after the last 14 months, definitely earned based on what I've seen from our staff. The total budget, contributing factors, state contribution, total local funding, budget history, capital reserve fund, unassigned fund, balance amount, and variables are all different parts of our budget. One of the things that I wanted to share is on the next page as far as the total budget, because under revenues, that was a decrease originally. Now it's an increase, and the increase is because I've taken out the unassigned amount, which is around $118,000, and I've taken that amount out, and I've increased the ARF funds. And the reason why I did that is because I think that the ARF funds might be good for, we might be able to use those for a couple of years. So we should be able to, hopefully, the plan is to use those funds to offset budgets, et cetera, provide additional support. Some of the things we're looking at is adding a nurse, adding a guidance counselor at the elementary school, potentially other positions that we talked about that we're going to add, using those funds, and we'll hire people with the understanding that they know they're being paid for through federal funds when those funds are gone. Then we would have to restructure based on our needs, and then we would present a new budget. So the point is that by not using unassigned, we'll leave the unassigned balance in that account for this year and next year if we can, and so the following year you should have, or we should have, those funds to use to not create such a large cliff. So we could use, so if we have 118 this year, 118 next year, then we could probably use 250 or 300 and then slowly reduce the size of the difference of all these revenues. And, you know, hopefully our enrollments will go back, but to be honest, our enrollments are down. We're around 100, close to, I say just under 150. So we're looking really closely at our student numbers, especially at the elementary school, just to make sure that, I know for a while there was a lot of people, especially after the break, after the holiday break, a lot of parents were bringing their kids back. But at this point where there's only 5 weeks of school left, 5 or 6 weeks, the numbers of people bringing them back. And we're actually calling all the families who homeschooled their children for the first time this year. We're going to be contacting them and seeing if they're going to be sending their kids back. We also are we're working with the Western Maine Educational Collaborative to offer a remote academy. And that looks like a very good possibility for those students who were successful working remotely or at home. So the revenue amounts has increased by $230,574 from the last time you saw it, which is about 41%. And that's the piece that you got to be mindful of. The state contribution is the same. Local contribution has decreased. I believe it was close to 7% the last time we met. So that's down to about 3% or $232,000. And the total budget itself is up 2.5%. And that includes adult education. The major contributing factors to this, very simply, we had salaries and benefits. Our jobs for Maine graduates, there was one position that was paid for through a grant that's no longer being paid for that way. And then our professional services, which are, because all the infrastructures, repairs and stuff, the HVAC repairs and stuff we've done within the buildings, that's all been added as part of our service guaranteed performance contract. And so those amounts came up because you're talking, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment that now has to be maintained. And then the other variable that has changed since the last time we met are the ARF funds. And so there's a significant amount of those being used to help provide supports. And there's additional funds. The additional money will be used for infrastructure. We still have, although we don't have as much as we used to, we still have some projects. We still have some HVAC air quality projects and stuff that fall into the requirements for those funds. State subsidy is still the same. The essential programs and services are still the same. Total local funding, as I said, is a decrease. That went down to, like I said, $7,790,575, which is about a 3% increase. And this is the chart that I was telling you about, that I updated it. And so you can see the different amounts over the last 10 years. The capital reserve is the same as of July 1st. We had, and that's changed because we've added money to do the different projects. So, but we still have in this budget built in the $43,209 in the capital reserve, and that helps pay some of the professional services for our contracts with our guaranteed performance contracts. The big difference one of the big differences since the last time is that there's no use of unassigned funds in the budget, and as I tried to just explain, is that by holding those funds out for this year and for next year, we're hoping that 3 years from now, we'll be able to take those funds that we didn't use and treat them just like they are ARF funds and help start rebuilding the budget. Years ago, right after the referendum for the bond for the gym and the track, we had to increase our unassigned use, and I think it went all the way up to about $500,000. So slowly over the last several years, we have gone from that $500,000 down to about $118,000. Because one year, remember, we barely shifted or carried a balance because our budget was so close. Remaining variables, anticipated actual resignations. The regular instruction reserve account, now we haven't built that into this, but that can be used when the pandemic first started. The governor allowed schools to create a regular instruction reserve account. So we could actually, if something happened, we could actually take money out of our unassigned and move it into that regular instruction reserve account. I think we should be fine. But one thing I will tell you is that outside of the stimulus checks that people received, we haven't even received the application yet to spend the ARF funds. And so there's still a lot of unknowns with that and timelines and everything, because we're one of the few schools that has actually used all of the there's so many acronyms with the federal money. There's CRF, there's so many that it's hard to get them all caught up. So I'm trying to be as current as I can. So those funds will be used. We're not sure when the timeline will be. We haven't heard, but they were approved months ago. We still haven't received any application to put that in. We're hoping it'll just be added to the lines that they've already created for the other ones, the ESSER funds and the CRF funds and the CARES funds. We're hoping that it'll just transition into that, but I can't guarantee that's what's going to happen. Capital reserve I talked about. Special education is always a variable. You never know when students move in, move out. That can change, so that could be a plus or minus. Unanticipated revenues. And the Gartley Street School, we really, because of the pandemic, the revenue that we've usually, or even that we've anticipated for the Gartley Street School is much less than what we anticipated. So we've been watching that really close because the number of out-of-district kids who are being tuitioned here has dropped significantly since the pandemic started. And that's a variable that will go up and down depending on the year and the needs from various schools. So I guess in conclusion, that the numbers that we're presenting tonight is a 2.5% increase in our total budget and a 3% increase in the local contribution, which would be the equivalent of $232,000. And I don't know what that equates to because I know somebody's going to ask me, but generally Diane takes care of the whole, once you set the mill rate, then I can determine it. But I always, just so you know, I always send people to her whenever they're asking questions about that. But to be honest, nobody's asked a lot of questions, and people have been pretty happy with
at this
what we've
point
done.
anyways, because we'll do our piece next week that will ultimately hit what goes on the ballot, and then June 8th or 9th or whatever that
June
date
8th.
is, that'll go, and then it'll be part of the package for the entire budget. So.
Okay. I know that's a lot of information. I think I spent, well, I don't know how long I've been this time, but I think it was like 45 minutes to an hour last time. But
Good. It was good for the listening dot to actually bring it forward from where we started point to where you guys ultimately finished. Any questions of Rick or Tracy on content, guys?
I just wanted to say that I recognize the significant cuts that you made. Also recognize the fact that you don't know where these new funds are ever going to be applied. And as you all know, back when I said 3% was my number, and it looks like you've done it. So I'm happy with the local funds.
Any other questions? This is informational only, right, Twyla, at this point? There's no action that's required
Correct.
tonight because it'll be next week.
Public hearing next week, yeah. And then after you vote on the budget next Tuesday, absentee ballots will be available Wednesday.
Look at that. She doesn't miss a beat.
It's all good.
Capital improvement or anything on that? I know that was on tonight's budget.
well, I can give one of the things that I just wanted to point out now that I have a chance, because usually Alan
And he did a great job.
Yeah, he doesn't like talking, but I'm glad to hear that. One of the things I just wanted to share, because I actually have talked to a lot of people about the how the district has used the federal money, and I think the community also needs to know that there's been probably close to $2 million. When it's all said and done, it's probably going to be close to $2.5–3 million worth of money that has been spent on the buildings in regard to air quality, heat, HVAC, windows, doors. We were fortunate because we've been working with, we've been doing the performance, we've had performance contracts, but we also, what we did is when they came into our buildings and they looked at all of our needs, lights, everything, that's the next one is lights. We have a company coming in, same company's coming in and looking at our lights, and because there's significant rebates right now for going to different type of lighting systems, so it almost makes sense to do it now that we have these funds. So anyway, when it's all said and done, the amount of the projects were all broken into smaller pieces, so we used to call it phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. We literally are to the point right now that when you look at our capital plan, there's not a whole lot left that's going to be after this next wave. There's probably not a whole lot left that'll be in there for immediate use. I mean, and even you just approved the repairs of the middle school roof, So we have been able to, in my opinion, been able to utilize those funds. And talking to other districts, the O2 prime sensors that are in the rooms that are throwing out the negative the electrons and stuff to kill germs. I mean, long term, that's going to have a big impact on the schools because they almost clean themselves. Well, technically, that's how they sold it, is they clean themselves. But we know how that works. But anyway, the univents and stuff, those were 1970s, 60s. And so just the amount of air, just exchange in the buildings is huge. The windows, if any of you have seen the new windows in the buildings, those are like probably the most expensive and the least amount of return for your money. And so through these funds, we were able to purchase those, and we can open and close windows in buildings that we haven't been able to do that for a long time. So, and next we're looking at the lights. We put in the infrared, the temperature systems in all the schools. You can't walk into any of our buildings without having your temperature automatically taken. There's been so much. And then the other thing, I was looking at my notes from last year. When I was here last year, we were advocating for a trauma coach and some other key positions, director of curriculum, all those things. And I know that the budget was, that the whole process was, everybody was watching it really closely last year. But you have to understand how important those positions have been to our success, because there's no way that if I was by myself in a central office without having, Julie there as a director of curriculum, and then just watching that particular piece, focusing on COVID and stuff, and then having a trauma coach who's working with our parents and families. There's a lot of stuff that's going on right now that is scary. And I talked about it before, all the DHS referrals that I'm getting every week. It's, families are really, this has been hard. And having those extra supports, and I know we advocated, I was standing right here, it was more than a year ago, because I think it was June by the time we got to this point, but those have been critical to our success, all the different positions, PBIS teachers, and so we're still looking at some other things, a nurse, guidance counselor, some things that will help us get through the next year or two, because quite honestly, the social distancing and the mask and stuff is not going to change in the fall. I mean, the DOE has pretty much said that will be in place probably through December. The one thing I hope they do is just really pull back a little bit on the whole contact tracing, because when you have to shut down an entire room, like literally here, I haven't been within 6 feet of some of you, I mean, maybe 3 or 4 here, but in a school, you all would have to quarantine for 14 days. So, and we're all wearing masks. So at some point, you got to, hopefully they'll pull back a little bit and we'll be able to only worry about the kids and be able to test kids. Because teachers, if they're close contact, they're able to test it. We do the testing right at my office. They're able to test and go to work that day. And as soon as they have a negative test, they can go back from, even though it's the same test, as soon as they have a negative test, they can come back to work. We want to do that. We have the capacity, and we want to do that for our kids too. Because like the teachers, they're essential. They're why we're here. So, but right now they won't let us do that. We're getting there.
That's the rapid test, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the same one as Walgreens.
Any other questions, guys? The one thing that's, Alan mentioned it, you were still floating the idea associated with parking lot or any of the restriping?
With
not
what?
Striping, sealing? Parking lot.
Oh, the parking lot, yeah.
Where
Yeah, Randy and I were just talking earlier. He has some numbers for the paving, and so we still have money that we could transfer into capital reserve to kind of. It would be really nice to get that parking lot up by the tennis courts done. We've been talking about that since they cut all those trees down and put that hill in there. Get that done and line it. That would make games a lot easier to.
Yeah, and it'd be easier because you would just go with that, Randy, with the current bid that we got, as long as they were willing to extend it, just to actually put a change order against it to be able to cover the school department, right?
It was the quote per ton is a little bit more than, of course, doing the roadways, but
Because it's hand.
it was far less than other companies are charging right now, probably by $50, $60 per ton cheaper.
Yeah. No,
It was definitely, he gave us a good price, but.
and it's only going to go up. So the fact is, if you have the ability to be able to do so, I think that's just the best value for everybody. If that's something that we can get done, by all means. Good. Any other questions? If not, thank you guys.
No, just a thank you. Thank you. I know it was a lot of hard work, to Don's point earlier. So much appreciated over the last 2 years, not just this year, but also last year as well. So nice how you set it up so that next year you're already anticipating what needs to be done, and hopefully we'll have some better news this time next year.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah.
I would hope so. But yeah, we had prom last Saturday. I think we might be the first school that's done that. And we also, our graduation, where we've already done it, we're going to be able to do it this time, and we'll be able to add more people inside so that those families with older relatives and stuff that have a hard time walking or whatever can come in and sit and then get to see their child and or granddaughter, grandson or whatever walk across the stage and get their picture taken. So I kudos to the seniors for pulling that off, and the parent group and stuff. They converted I don't know if any of you have seen the pictures, but they hired a company and had them come in, and they transformed our gym into a prom, and it looked awesome. The kids had a blast from what I understand. It's probably, I would guess that's probably the first time they've been in a room outside of their house with music in probably
Right.
a year.
Very cool.
I would just like to say thank you too. Without a lot of those parts and pieces, we wouldn't have been able to get through the year. It's great. It's wonderful that our staff was able to stay in school so long, because as Superintendent Green mentioned, DHHS referrals are up. So being able to see those kids every day, having them come in the winter months in heat, being able to be fed breakfast and lunch, and take home bags for dinner, those are all huge things. I was explaining to someone when they asked what we used money for the federal money, and I kind of brought it down to an analogy of when you walk into your breezeway or your house and you've got, even just 2 children in your house, and you have shoes strewn everywhere or toys strewn everywhere, and with this money we've been able to, if you think of our capital reserve and checking off items, we've been able to throw a lot of those shoes and toys into cubbies and tuck them away because they've been checked off the list. There's still a few on the floor, but without that, COVID has sucked, but if there was a silver lining, it's the amount of money that has been given to communities to be able to look at their infrastructure and take care of certain things that we probably would have spent the next 10 years doing. So it's been a wonderful, wonderful thing to be able to use that on items that we were going to do anyway, but not have to burden the town in doing so. So kudos to everyone that's involved with doing all of that, because that wasn't easy to coordinate either. But as we have learned, the capital plan it's a plan. So you had the blueprints, and we had our Siemens who does our maintenance on our equipment. We had the plan, so it was ready, and that's the whole reason why we were able to do it so quickly, was because we already knew these were items that needed to be taken care of in phases. We were just able to fast forward those phases, and we still have some items on there. Like I said, there's still some toys and shoes on the floor, but the vast majority is in the closet, so that's good.
Right on.
Yeah. Good
Thank
stuff.
you.
Very good stuff.
Next item, Twyla.
Next item is audience participation and response for agenda items. So those listening from Town Hall Streams are now invited to send written comments to award@lisbonme.org. And if there's anyone in the hallway who wishes to speak, they may now enter the room.
I
I
still
don't
got
believe
nothing
we
here,
see
Twyla.
any. Okay. So,
And I have no emails, so
Okay.
we're gonna move on.
so the next item is the consent agenda. Consent agenda items are considered to be routine and will be considered for adoption by one motion with no separate discussion, unless a counselor requests an item be removed for immediate discussion. Any counselor wishing to remove an item? You do so now. Seeing none, Order 2021, number 97, to approve the municipal accounts payable warrants totaling $268,726.21. The municipal payroll warrants totaling $314,372.11. The school accounts payable warrants totaling $81,137.75. The school payroll warrants totaling $364,961.83. Minutes of April 20th and the workshop minutes of April 13 and April 27, along with approving the renewal victualers licenses for 13 eating places as follows: Angela's Bootleggers, Cantown Pearl, San Brown, also known as the Big Apple, Domino's, Dunkin' Donuts, Easy March, Lisbon House of Pizza, McDonald's, Roadside Barbecue, Rusty Lantern, Sam's Italian Foods, and Someway. Plus, approving the audit and fixed asset engagement letters, and to schedule a budget workshop on May 11th, and to schedule only one meeting for June on June 22, along with approving the CMP easement for EV charging stations.
Make the motion.
Need a second?
Second.
Any discussion on any of the content? Seeing none, all in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
Next, 12.
Order 2021-98 to solicit bids for striping.
Good evening, everyone. Randy Sear, Public Works and Solid Waste Director. It's that time of year again where I solicit the road striping. I'd like to have the permission to send that out to bid as soon as I can, get it on the list and get it done as soon as possible.
Randy's given you the list in the packet, guys. Any questions on content for Randy? Seeing none, can I have a motion?
Make the motion.
Can I have a second?
I'll
I got my second right there in the corner. Any other dialogue questions? All in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
Next item, 12.
Order 2021, number 99, authorization to sell municipal equipment.
All right, again, I've given you a list. You see it in the packet. There's only 3 items on there that I'd like to ask permission to either send to auction or solicit some offers on these 3 items. One is the used generator that came from the municipal building. This generator was replaced because of the malfunctions that it had. So I'd like to send that out to to get quotes. Auctions International, we've been having a great feedback and actually got some real good money for the vehicles I really didn't think we'd get from for vehicles that didn't run. So we did really well with them. The other one's the 1999 International dump truck with plow headgear, no plow. It does have a dump body on it. It's a steel dump body. This truck will not pass for a state inspection sticker, and it's no use of us. It's a real super light duty truck, and it was down at Parks and Rec for a little while. We used it when I was redoing Mark's parking lot and expanding the parking lot, and ran fine. But again, it just has a lot of rust issues that really doesn't seem feasible to keep it. So we'd like to send that off to auction also. And this spring we did a lot of cleanup around the Public Works garage, and previous directors or just accumulating granite curbing. We have a ton of it, and it's worth money. So that too I'd like to put out. Auctions International did do a recent bid. Got in the ballpark of 20,000, 30,000. They had a lot more lineal footage than I do, but there's a market for it out there. So I'd like to see if we can get some input on getting some quotes on that also, some bids on that.
I'll take a motion for discussion.
I'll make a motion for discussion.
Taking a second for that.
A second.
I got the second over there. I provided Randy a contact from Stone Curators out of Connecticut that I've worked with, because I hadn't heard this until 3-4 years ago in that regard, and I was approached by a couple of people on this, and there is a market for it. The fact that they literally cut this stuff up and they turn it into people's countertops and everything else. They pay all the transportation costs, and they're willing to pay per ton associated with the granite curb. It's a good deal. The only thing that I would say for Randy's purposes, maybe next year, is looking at future street bids. Actually give it to the contractor that's actually getting the paving to get the reduced cost directly in the bid, so it doesn't accumulate, that you have to deal with it in the future. That's Lewiston's gotten out of that business in the last year, and it's worked out for us, so you don't have to deal with the storage of this type of stuff. And knowing in our facility, it's underfoot. Observation from somebody that's actually there just in my travels on the weekends, yeah, you have. The yard's been extremely well picked up in the last couple of weeks associated with that.
Exactly, yeah.
That loop all the way up around to where the metal pile is. So the fact is, there's a lot less of that stuff that's just
Right.
sitting there. So kudos to your guys for doing that.
Thank you.
And I would encourage at least follow up with stone curators associated with that, because if they're in the area, because I've already directed them to 3 other people locally for the same thing. I've sent them to
nice.
all of our contractors. I would give you the discretion, if the pricing makes sense, pull the trigger. But if you've got basis for Auctions International for a backup, I don't know. We haven't had to deal with that through Dave. We sold cobblestones and that type of stuff with him. So I know he does have the depth to be able to make that work. And you guys know it from me, is that having put him in contact with Diane and Randy in the past, the fact is I'm an advocate for them, because it doesn't sit. The sealed bid things that we were doing locally, we don't have the depth to make it
Right.
work.
Exactly.
Is there anything else, just because I see Mark sitting here, we're talking the 2 trucks on his budget. Is there anything else that's surplus in the town that if Dave's going to come up, at least put it on his radar?
I can't think of anything right now, no.
But, and I don't want to put you in that position, because it's only, you're representing PW.
Right.
But Diane, if you could put that ask out to the other department heads, that, okay, if it's not now, at least Dave's, while he's up here, can actually take pictures of these other things that we've talked about, like the 2 generators that are in the 2 firehouses. If that ultimately passes, he's already got them pictured to be able to say we can do another
True.
auction in the July timeframe, so this stuff doesn't accumulate.
Right.
You know, so I would go through all of that.
Okay.
The fact that I know Mark had a couple of pieces of equipment in his budget, the lawnmowers, the snowmobile, and those type of things. If they're going to go, might as well take the pictures of it now to make best use of this guy's time.
Exactly.
Mr. Chair,
Yep.
just for the listening public and one less informed counselor,
Sure.
when you're talking about the old granite, did I hear you say working any new bids for street rework to include changing out or accepting or taking the old granite? Is that what you're talking about?
Basically, the way, like, and in a demolition contract, do the same thing.
Okay.
You actually, they have the salvage right.
So we
Which-
don't accumulate the stuff.
Yeah, basically, a lot of, either they're going to make it up in their mobilization costs because they know when they take it out, but the long and short of it is that when you're putting new roadways in, like when Main Street gets redone with an MDOT, the linear foot for new granite going in versus having to mess around with what's there is, it's not,
Yeah.
doesn't make sense. But that coming out still has value at the, they're coming 3
Right,
or 6 foot
right.
lengths or whatever, that it becomes that secondary, who's going to store it? And the fact that if you don't have to accumulate it, I would just advocate that just put it into our next year's bid, that the winning bidder
Mailbox
will
posts
actually get
and
it,
things.
because you'll actually get the benefit of that value right now instead of having
Right.
to deal with
That's
storage.
well, that's what I thought, but I wanted to make
Yep.
sure.
Any other dialogue with Randy on that? I would advocate for that, and just if we could have anything else that actually gets, because Dave's, I do the same thing. If I'm looking in the next 3 months that what's actually here, get him up here, because he may be 6 weeks before he can even hit the state in that regard too, so make it worth his time.
Well, there is another item. It's that, if the budgets get approved, it's the transfer station truck that
Yep.
can't pass for a sticker either, which is a
Yep.
'04 Ford or something like that. That's going to go. So that can be added also.
Yep. And that's all subject to the package, and then in 30 days, when that's done,
Yeah.
all
And
you
then the
need
other
is-
thing is the forklift up there, and there's a
Yep.
bunch of other things I can think of now, So,
yeah, just to open up the mind associated, because if you don't do it, then it will be right back here and come November, and then
Right.
he's looking to actually tie down what he's doing before winter hits, because he doesn't want to be dealing with any of the auctions up here in February.
exactly. Yep.
Yep. Any other dialogue? Seeing none, all in favor?
Order passed 7-0.
Next item?
Order 2021-100, the fee schedule amendments.
Okay.
You want to do Mark's first?
Let's
and
do
then mine
Mark's
after?
first, yes. You guys have it in your packet here. Mark's made some recommendations. Primarily, his was covered under, he'd like to, after-school fees going from 40 to 50 per week. Daily fees, 10 to 20, $12, I apologize. Before school fees, 12 to 15, and the daily fee going from 3 to 4. That's in the larger version of the content that you guys
And-
have in your,
Veterans
Dialogue.
free.
and the veterans, right?
Veterans free.
Diane had concern on the veterans part of it, the fact that whether we could actually treat one category of people within the community separate from others, and that review with Dan worked out how?
Yeah, no, we can charge a different fee for veterans.
It would be no different if we did for like seniors too, so same idea. Once we,
Yeah, I just wanted to be sure we had that authority
Right.
to do that. We do, we can.
awesome.
Now, I'll take a motion for discussion to make that easier.
I'll make a motion for discussion.
I need a second,
Second.
and that motion would be strictly on the recreation fees, if you don't mind, Twyla.
That's fine,
We'll
yeah.
take them separately.
Okay.
Specifically, Mark, I see the veterans fee problematic to be able to have one versions of others. My counter for consideration is I still think that there should be some sort of fee that come in, so you're not actually having one class just actually drive straight through the gate that doesn't have the sticker in the window, because that's a little bit of an issue on that, and how do you enforce? And then we're still treating one category of people separate from others. My version that seems softer to me is I would advocate a veteran/seniors fee for a $1 daily use instead of the 2. And the resident sticker, we could actually either entertain going down from the $20 that's currently established, or the fact that that fee, do we know the last time that that was adjusted?
It's 5 years ago.
5 years?
5 years ago.
Okay.
It went from $1 to $2, and
How about the seasons pass?
season passed 5 years ago,
It's 5 years ago.
being to $20. Yeah.
So that said, we could actually look at a break on the seasons pass as well for that category, in my opinion. Or way I looked at it is, not knowing the basis on that, I would propose a $25 fee on that and leave it at the seniors veterans rate at the 20, so they're getting a reduced rate. So
And just share some of my thoughts on it.
sure.
Second for your motion?
No, it's just we're doing
Throwing it out?
this is just the motion's already there. We're in the discussion part, so
I thought you were
none-
amending it. Sorry.
nope.
Okay.
Nope. None of that has traction at this point. Just for discussion.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I'm
Mark.
just speaking on behalf of the veterans. With the amount of veterans that do come into the park, we're talking about, and I know this isn't a concern of yours, but the amount of money, the revenues that we'd be not collecting is minuscule. Not hardly enough to even notice, probably. But the gesture that we'll be sending is insurmountable, is huge. The state doesn't charge veterans for going to state parks. Federal parks, national parks don't charge veterans. And the commitment that veterans give to our country, serving in our country's military, to me is priceless. And if we could, going from $2 to $0, and Diane brought up some good points when I brought this to her. She said, "Well, how would you know if they're a veteran?" I said, "Well, I would ask them when they come to the gate if they have a veteran license plate, or if when they come up to get a park pass, we write down their DD-214 number or their AFSC specialty code, which all military people have, on the park pass application." I just think it would be a big thing for our community to offer that. I reached out to other parks and recreation departments, and I got interesting feedback from them. Most towns don't charge anything for their parks. Nothing. Zero. Even their community centers they don't charge for. And the ones that do charge, the ones that I got feedback from today was if they're combat veterans or Purple Heart, anybody that has served in the military that is injured, they don't pay anything. And I just think that we should consider that. We honor our veterans. We can do it in other places too in our community, but I think this would be a good start.
Yes, Cassie.
Is there any way, like at least for in town, when they come to register their vehicles, if we could get like a specific veteran park pass for them that they can put on their window?
Sure, absolutely, easy.
I mean,
very.
They're already here registering it, and at that point, I mean, it would be no different than a dump sticker.
That would be very very inexpensive to do. Just to get a veteran park pass. Simple to do. And the other thing is, a lot of times, veterans will have on their driver's license their military services connected there, right on the driver's license.
Again, in that regard, the fact that just hearing Mark's testimony, one of the things that I'm there is the fact that I still have also heard the fact that seniors, the fact is handicapped, the fact that if you're going to do one for one, the fact is, are we doing enough for those two categories as well?
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
Is there, throughout the town, I mean, I know this discussion's been brought down a couple different times, but through our regular fee schedule right now, how many different exemptions do we actually have on our fee schedule as far as for seniors, non-seniors, veterans? Really none, right? It's basically straight across the board. And I think it was done that way to simplify it.
Right.
We actually have a discount for seniors who are in our fitness center. If you're 60 or older, you pay $10 a month. If you're under 60, then it's $15 a month.
Do you have any veterans or military discounts yet at the MTM or anything like that?
Not yet, no.
I don't know. I'm kind of with that one in the sense where I think it's hard to actually simplify a lot of this. I mean, unless we actually look at it and actually consider all seniors or other. I'm not disagreeing with the idea of it. I mean, we don't charge terribly a whole lot anyways, and a lot of it's basically more just for administration than as anything else. I don't think the $20 season pass and $2 a day actually.
It's not that they can't afford it. It's not that.
No.
But part of it is that if they can go to a state park at no charge, and then they come to a small 300-acre beaver park, they're like, oh, okay, I'm paying $20 for the season, but they get free entrance to state and federal parks, and that's why I'm trying to
I'll be blunt, Mark. I'm trying to go one step further because when we started this, me being specifically on the council 5 years ago, Lisbon's best kept secret.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, the secret's out.
Secret's out, right?
It's not about the revenues. I want people using the park.
Right.
The fact is, I'm going to live all day. The fact that if that's the case, then again, I'm going to repeat. Seniors and handicapped, dissociated. It's not about the fee. Get them to use the park. It's a great resource right here in the center of our community.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I think maybe we're we're overcomplicating this. I think in this particular case, it's good politics to look at the model that the state and that the federal level has adopted regarding our veterans. I feel very comfortable. I think that's the right place to go. To your point about the other populations that you mentioned, the handicapped and seniors, I think we should certainly look at that and discuss it as well. But I think if we're talking about whether or not we should charge veterans to go into Beaver Park, I say we should. That's where I stand on that. So,
Mr. Chair,
Yep.
I don't know what everybody else's background is, but I am a veteran, and I am a senior. I think most...
You're not handicapped.
one discount, Don. One discount.
I may be handicapped too, I don't know.
Sorry, didn't mean to cut.
As part of a group of citizens that represent about 1% of the population or less, I strongly feel that veterans should be recognized, whether they're active, retired, having served honorably, whatever. They should be recognized. The state does that. The state does not include families under that, and I don't believe that families should be included under that either. But I'm a strong believer in the veterans should be recognized, and that's a small way to recognize them.
So, Don, and what you're saying is if a veteran's family rolls in the park, the driver, because he's a veteran, gets in free and the rest of the family has to pay? I mean...
Well,
like
no,
with
I'm
me-
not. I'm just saying you don't
Yeah.
give any more preference to the families than
With
than
my
anybody
family,
else.
my husband's a veteran, so when we go to like Reed State and we roll in, he shows them his ID, or they look at his license plate, which has the veteran plate. He gets the discount, we all pay full price.
What, Mr. Chair, may I ask,
Yeah.
what do we collect a year in fees in town and non-residents and non-residents? I don't have broken down that that definition, but and I think in the best year we've ever had, not this year, but the exception of this year, was around $8,000. Our target was at $10,000 4 years ago, and last year we collected way over $10,000, 2020, and then this year we're already at $8,000 for this fiscal year. We'll pass $10,000 again this year. And the percentage of that, do you think it's 50-50, 60-40 as far as resident, non-resident? No, it's probably 80-20. 80-20, 80% resident? Yes.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
So just I'm thinking of this practically from an administrative standpoint. I'm kind of iffy on the whole, like, breaking up the population, by veterans and non-veterans. But if we were going to go this route, I think my suggestion would be that if we were to give veterans free entrance, you would do it by vehicle registration, and they could get the free sticker, the pass that they can put on their car. If they don't have that and they're going through the gate, we'd still keep the fee there. But just for when they're registering their car and they're veteran, we can have some sort of form, and they get the sticker that way, as opposed to doing trying to check somebody's license plate or vehicle ID or anything like
Yeah,
that.
and Mark's never going to get into that because
Yeah.
the fact is it's hard enough to administer the gate fees. This is a system based strictly on the honor system for the most part. In fact, it's by all means.
So anyways, that would be my if we were going to go this route, I would say veterans get a free,
And then
the
take
yearly
care of
pass.
it here in the office. Get
Yeah.
a sticker, that way Mark doesn't have to get into it.
Now, how would we handle that with people from out of town? Could they bring their registration to you and get a sticker?
I think if they register their car in Lisbon, then they're eligible. If they're not from Lisbon, they're not going to be registering their car, and they won't get that would solve a lot of my issues with that.
Right.
But
Yeah,
logistically,
for sure.
that would be the best way to do it for us. I mean, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, please.
the sticker thing sounds pretty simple, but I know we actually always struggle around even the dump sticker thing as far as the people up front trying to spend the time to actually get that information and produce a sticker. And I think it's just one of those things where I think it's a very good thing to do, but unfortunately I don't think it's an easy way to do it. I mean, to make it very equitable and straight across the board. That's probably why there's always been just a straight price all the way across the board. And I don't know, I guess I'd leave it up to Mark. I mean, at some point in time, if we're really encouraging people to go, maybe we actually just actually have no fees and just actually charge people from out of town and have the local people that pay the taxes to keep the place going, offer to go in, no charge. I mean, so it's one of those things, I guess,
I guess that's what I was asking, the fee structure. I mean, is the fees actually keeping the place going, or is it just monitoring who goes in and out? But it's a challenge. I mean,
It's basically covering the overtime.
How do we handle the
If that.
residents' yearly pass? Do they get a sticker that goes on their vehicle?
They do, yep.
So, is there like a identification number, or is it just like a generalized?
There's a registration number. Each pass has its own number. I think we have 0001 up to 600. And last year, I think we sold 450 passes. And prior to that, it was more. I don't think we oversold over more 350. But anyway, that's what they do. They get a park pass. We have a registration form they fill out. We get their driver's their tags from their license plate and their address, and we file that. But I'll tell you too, most of the passes, because the town office here, the ladies up front are doing add-on sales. They really promote selling the park passes right here at the office. Buying your dump sticker. They just do everything all in one shot. They register your vehicle. It used to be that 90% of our passes were sold right at the gate. Now it's flip-flop. It's more passes are sold here. Wouldn't you say so, Diane? That most passes are sold here at the town office.
So I wouldn't see how it would be any different if we did the veteran one. Whether they're a resident of Lisbon getting a yearly pass, it's the same procedure.
And I don't have a problem with it. The comment I always get from out front is they have a hard time having time to do what they need to do, forget about anything extra, but maybe I'm only hearing one side of it.
I think if you were going to issue those here, we're not going to be looking for proof. We'll just ask them if you're a veteran. If they say yes, do you want a free Beaver Park pass? But to get into any type of them showing us something, we have to deal with that today. It wasn't pleasant out there, and I just don't want to add that to their plate because they get a lot thrown at them from the public. Any decision that's ever made here is taken out on those girls out there.
And that's what my concern is, the idea that anything we do here, it's an easy vote, but if we're adding stress to an area that's already stressful, we don't have to make it doesn't hurt us, but it actually presents more work for somebody else. That's all.
Right, and I don't want them to be in a position where they're asking questions and the people on the other end say, you can't ask me that question, because we did have that recently. So just trying to verify something. So, if you want to do that and have them issue it, I think just a simple, are you a veteran? And if they say yes, just issue them the sticker.
Yeah. And I don't go through the park checking people's windshields. I don't do that. I don't chase people around. I don't have time for that, and they could have paid it in the red box. I mean, the red box, we're, $300-400 a week right now. That little tiny red box. We need to get a bigger box, but it's the daily passes that's pushed through. It's right now the daily passes.
I would advocate for letting Mark try what he wants to try, and this year, and if he wants to change it to Fern's recommendation to free for everybody, resident later, that's fine. But let's try what he'd like to try.
Okay, so I would ask for a friendly amendment to the motion from you two then. That daily fee stays at $2. You're going to take care of the pass at the veterans a yearly pass for family. That's what I clearly heard, correct?
That was
I'm confused.
Are you guys good? If you're going to police it and you're actually going to take care of it with their pass, you're going to do it at a yearly pass for the family versus the actual day that Marks has to police on the individual basis, the visits.
So do the sticker pass?
Yes.
Versus
yes.
Every day. Yeah.
Yes. But we have a motion and a second on the floor, so are you guys okay with the friendly amendment?
Yeah.
So do you want me? Would you like me to make the actual
the
amendment?
amendment.
Yeah, so I can write it down, if you don't mind.
Okay, so I propose an amendment that we waive the veterans, or make a yearly pass free for veterans.
Right. And then
Okay, so you're just
the
adding
daily
that.
pass, the daily pass would stay at $2. We're not touching that.
Yeah, the daily pass would stay as is.
I need a second for that amendment.
Second.
We're voting on the amendment and then, right. All in favor?
Order passed, 7-0. Send the main motion as amended,
Correct. All in favor?
7-0. Order passed. Okay, thank you.
Mark, you have our ear on the future associated with that, so at least what's done is done. Moving forward, I would still advocate towards what Fern is talking about, the fact that get the seniors out, get the handicap associated with it. It's less about the fee. We want that park being used.
I've always felt strongly, ever since the parks became under my department, is that you know, we don't typically charge someone that wants to walk in on the school fields to use their fields. We don't typically charge anybody who wants to use Pinewoods fields unless they're playing softball. Most of the people that use Beaver Park are already taxpayers, and this is their park, this is their town, and for them to have to pay a fee, I understand that to help offset the cost for the park, but it does very little. At $10,000, it's
Right.
more of a gesture than anything else.
Yep. Thank you, sir. Randy's portion?
I think he wants us to add one more piece to it.
Yep.
There is one more thing. I mean, we were talking about fees for other programs, and
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I did want to mention, other than what I proposed, I wanted to talk about the summer day camp fees, and something that I've been tracking for the last several years. We made some changes over the last couple of years. 2 or 3 years ago, we changed from a $250 fee to $400 to a $350 fee, and then $350 to $450 fee. We went up $100 over like corresponding years. And the reason behind that was that we took, if you remember this, we took the trip costs. We were charging participants each week for trips. And it was the logistics of collecting that kind of money every week was problematic. We were taking a lot of cash in through the front desk, and registrations we'd have to reimburse, and there was just, our finance department didn't really like it. Our auditors really weren't too keen on it, even though they were okay with us doing it that way. So 3 years ago, we decided to have that fee included in the full fee for the summer day camps. That's why it's at $450. The fee didn't really go up. We just added the cost for trips in that fee. So without having it gone up in the last 3 or 4 years, I'd like to propose that we go from $450 to $475, or actually just add $25 to residents, non-residents, and if you want to break down what it would be, is
475, 6,
right,
3.
$450 to $475 for residents. Non-residents would be $525 to $550. And last year, because of the pandemic, we didn't offer half-time, part-time. We're limited on space, so anybody that goes 3 days or more, that's considered full-time. So we didn't offer the 2-day-a-week option, just because we needed to hire enough staff to cover the full-timers. And I don't see us offering that again, even though the school department's being very generous with using their facilities again this summer. We probably won't be offering a half-time option anyway.
Based on what we had for discussion during Mark's workshop for recreation, I think he's pretty much hit it. The 2 focuses associated with that were those programs that were impacted the most by the minimum wage increases over the last couple of years, and potential for vans or buses. So I would completely support. We have a motion for discussion.
I'll make a motion.
And that motion, quite specifically, is, I should say, the after-school fees as presented and the before-school fees as presented, in addition to the resident, non-resident, half-time and non-resident summer day camp increases that Mark has just addressed. And I would second that. And those numbers, Twyla, because he just read them off. Summer resident day camp would go to $475, non-resident to $550, half-time $325, non-resident $375. Any other discussion on that item? Hearing none, all in favor?
Order passed 7-0.
Thank you, Mark.
It breaks down to $1.60 an hour for the summer. It's pretty reasonable.
But it goes a long ways to actually
I think so.
supporting the case that you made associated with the minimum wage increases over the last couple of years.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
All right. Summarize yours, Randy.
All right, it's going to take a little longer here.
That's
Guarantee you that.
fair.
All right, so in your packet, you can, we've given you a breakdown on the waste, on raising the fees for some of the waste disposal. As you can tell, the price per ton for OBW has changed to $78 per ton. The MSW has changed, $73.89 a ton. The compost and everything, I don't have to go through the whole thing. You guys have gotten all this. What it costs for oil, antifreeze, all that good stuff. And then the fee changes are listed, and I'm sure you've got those out front of you as well, where the residents pass would go up $5, businesses $5. Windows from $2 to $5, doors $2 to $5. Lisbon sticker and demo permit per yard from 25 to 30. Again, all these changes, I could list them out, one by one. And if you want me to, I will. But even if we do implement these changes, we're still going to be in the red no matter what. We'd have to times all these by 10 to even break even. As you can tell by the reports that were sent out by the department, by our department, Ray's put together everything. I mean, we're still at $305,000 worth of tipping fees. So with that being said, and only pulling in $75,000 at $25 a sticker, which I thought the town was going to come unglued on. Basically, it doesn't even scratch the surface, but I mean, it is what it is. It's just costing us more to get rid of. And with these small changes, we're just trying to recoup some of the costs. And with people staying home, we're finding more of an increase of, people getting rid of stuff, cleaning out their garage finally, and, sprucing up around their house. And we see it in, the tonnage. I think we figured out would be, from last year, we're going to be about a little more than 100 ton by the end of this year over on the OBW, so that's just saying, what people are doing, they're cleaning up, of course. So, but with that being said, these changes are small, but we're hoping to lessen the burden on the town and the tipping fees. So we're just trying to recoup our costs. Like I said, no matter if we implement all these changes that I've put forth, it still is not, we're still going to be in the red. Let me go further down the line as per, not for the sofas and everything else like that. Those are just small fees. I think the biggest fees you guys are going to see is with your commercial residential haulers, going from 1,000 to 3,000. I kind of expect that, a couple of those guys will come beating down my door, but luckily I moved out of town. I'm sure they'll find me around somewhere. But we're just basically, Diane and I have spoken. There was a couple days where we had to have the commercial haulers bring their stuff down to Auburn on their own because we had no power. Somebody had taken out a telephone pole. That was on one of their busiest days on a Tuesday. And we kept those slips to see what the tonnages were. Well, if we did that multiplication, times 52 weeks, it added up to quite a bit. And I was pretty almost spot on with where I was when this all come out, and commercial haulers stood here and, basically fed me the gauntlet, and told me I was lying, whatever. Proof is in the pudding. We paid for the slips because all they have to do is bring it down, bring us a slip, we'll pay for it. So, but anyway, with that being said, we base that off, let's say each residential hauler had 100 customers, and those 100 customers were not paying their $30 to get a sticker. which is some of the revenue we're missing out on. Again, not very much revenue, but just a little bit. So if each commercial hauler had 100 customers, which is probably, they have way more than that, we'd be, billing them for the lost revenue we'd have, we missed out on the stickers. So basically, that's where we come up with the number, instead of 1,000, be 3,000. Basically, we're trying to recoup some of that money that those people are, they're paying for a service, like they said. That's what they give the public as a service to go pick their trash up. But we lose out on the other end. So it's just a small way of trying to make up some of that lost revenue.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
For definition purposes, the difference between a commercial resident hauler and a commercial non-resident hauler?
Yeah, the non-resident hauler would be somebody that's, from out of town, correct?
Yeah, that doesn't live in town.
That does not live in
But
town.
hauls trash for the town?
They're picking up Lisbon trash, yeah, they're just
How do we even know where they're hauling from?
When they come and fill out when they come and get their permit.
No, I mean, local
Oh,
resident.
we really don't know.
They're not,
Exactly.
supposedly they're not picking up out-of-town trash. It's
Right.
basically the vehicles are
Well,
registered.
I don't know.
We have in the past randomly pulled a bag, gone through it, and see what the addresses are. I mean, but since the whole COVID thing, we're not touching any trash.
Right.
So, I mean, of course we go. The finance committee is still going to go back into session again on this whole thing. It's with everything that's been going on, it's scheduled again to figure out where this is all going. And for me, it's a paper bag because that's that's a whole topic for a different day. But that's the easiest way to make sure everybody's paying their share. If my mother, single woman, 82 years old, she goes through one bag every other week, she's paying $25. It's cheaper for her to pay by the bag than paying $30. Family of 4, got a bunch of diapers, got 4 or 5 bags a week. Well, then you're paying for what you're using.
Yep.
But I'm not trying to sell anything today. I'm just trying to say, as far as my fee schedule, just trying to make up a little bit more of where we're lacking. Like I said, with all these in place, we're still going to be in the red, so it's just to lessen the blow a little bit.
Mr. Chair, I'm all about the commercial stuff, so doing that. I do have another question, if I can ask.
Sure. I'll go here first.
Oh, okay.
How many commercial haulers? I mean, and you're actually just stating commercial haulers as being people hauling commercial trash, but
There's 4.
the commercial businesses in town, like bigger box stores that come in that are commercially driven, they're still only paying the $30.
What are they?
Yes.
They are the $30.
I mean, it's
There's no
But a
difference
lot of,
between the
I
two.
do have to say this, that let's say your furniture box stores or whatever are actually bringing boxes in, we make money on that.
I know. I mean, just if I just voice my concern or my opinion. I mean, if we're going by the theory that the sticker costs, all right, the dump sticker was actually presented to actually offset the cost of operations. I understand the principle. If we actually we're selling the stickers for identification for people coming through that they're residents. I guess it goes back to the whole discussion we've had every time. This has been something for 20 years, probably plus, right? Is the transfer station a service that people get from paying taxes, or is the transfer station something that people that use it need to actually pay to use? Same thing as Beaver Park, discussion we had earlier, right? Taxpayers, are they already paying for the benefit of having a park in their town, or should they be charged individually for going on site? I mean, they're already paying for it, so do they got to pay for it again? It's kind of the same thing as a transfer station. I mean, to me, we got to look at it and as a broader thing. I mean, paper bag, I agree. I mean, it's basically it should be a use, right? Someone actually uses it 10 times more than somebody else, they ought to pay 10 times more.
Right, exactly.
The idea of actually, again, just going by a business in town, if you're going to increase someone's fees from $1,000 to $3,000, and that's a pretty dramatic change. I mean, for someone that actually is doing budgeting. You mean, Not saying it's unreasonable, but I'm just saying it's a huge change. I mean, it's tripling the price, right? Pretty much going from 1,000 to 3,000.
Right.
I think we just got to have, even before the finance committee gets involved, we just have an honest discussion. Is our transfer station part of the benefit that we get from the town, like fire and plowing streets and taking care of roads and sewer and, you know, water? Is it one of those things that's part of the town? Not that all those are free either, but I'm just saying, or is it we offset it by the actual costs and fees? It's just a discussion we got to figure out, and if we are trying to offset it by what we're bringing in, the only fair way is a paper bag.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some people may not like it. They'll probably individuals could spend $2,000 or $3,000 a year apiece hauling in trash. I mean, but yet, if we're actually trying to break even by what we're bringing in, you know, I think we look at a lot of stuff that we allow and just don't take it. People bring in shingles, people bring in mattresses, just say, go to Auburn. We don't have to deal with it, right?
Right.
I mean, it's strictly a dollar factor thing. You don't charge enough to actually handle that stuff.
That's right.
You know what I mean? So if we're going to lose money and all that stuff, I mean, was it better when we actually stopped taking all that stuff for quite a while? I mean, did it actually?
I wasn't here and when that was going around. I'm sure Mr. Ricker could probably answer to that, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm saying it'd probably be great because then my trucking costs and everything would go down. I'm not making all these trips down to Grimmel's and.
I mean, if we're collecting shingles, I mean, just because the idea it's a service and we're not making money on them, I mean, we're actually losing money on them. I think we just have to look at it as a business smart type of standard. You know, what are we doing it for? And if it is a service for our community that's actually offset by them paying taxes, and then we got to figure that out. But I think it's a broad discussion. I mean, if we're running in the red, if we're looking at it thinking we're running it as a business or we're running in the red, then we need to go correct the whole idea of how we're doing it, right? Mm-hmm. If we're actually thinking it's actually a town, you know, service, and then the stickers and stuff are actually identifications, like going into Beaver Park, we get a sticker. That's what the $25 is paying for, and then that's what most people think in the back of the mind. I get the sticker, I got to pay for the person that actually has to write the sticker out, producing the sticker, and you know, the $25 isn't unreasonable to think about that. It's not, so to speak, to offset the tipping costs. But again, my own opinion, some of these, I understand what the theory is, I just don't agree with them. But again, unless we have some other plan, I mean, you know, if you really wanted to get down to it, we should just charge as much for the dump stickers as it was going to take us to be in the black. So they're going to pay what, $150, $200 a sticker?
I was going to say it's going to be about $150, and then you're paying the price per bag.
Yeah.
If you average out your trash.
If we're looking to go in the black, we just do that. I mean, just start charging people $150, $200 a dump sticker, and
some people, based on use, would still be coming out
could be benefiting
clean at $150.
Yeah.
If we were to just get rid of commercial haulers altogether, what do you think the impact would be for that? And it was just strictly everybody bringing their own household trash.
Anarchy.
Well,
That's not our problem. They're making they're making a profit off from hauling it. They can go to Auburn where there's a scale and they're going to pay by the weight.
But then you're still going to get the person to say, is this service included in the taxes I'm paying? If it's
I'm not getting the same level of service to the guy that's actually bringing it himself.
The business to.
We're not in the trash. We shouldn't be in the trash business.
Right,
We do it strictly for a
I'm
service to our
saying is-
taxpayers. So
What I'm saying is
Yep.
we don't have control over who those haulers are coming from. They could say that they're coming from Lisbon, but they could be coming from Sabatis.
everybody
We
hauling in.
can just simply say, no more haulers. You have a service down the road. One way or another, they're going to pay a fee.
We can say the same thing about shingles, oils, wood, mattresses.
I think
we can say that across all the board.
You're misunderstanding what I'm saying. To alleviate, they're coming in with tons. You're, on the other hand, you're coming in with your weekly trash.
Residential. He's making the distinguishing between construction and residential trash.
Right.
Yeah.
But,
But it's another alternative to your
right.
point.
We just simply say no more. Go to Auburn, pay your tonnage, and if your fees go up, then that goes on the people that are taking the easy way out and not going to the dump themselves.
Yep.
And are paying for a service. You are paying for a service.
Agreed.
It's a convenience.
It's another alternative.
Absolutely.
Choice. It's all about
We're back to Don. I'm sorry, Randy.
Then if I can add, Fred, you got a great point, what part of it is tax-based. And you're right. For us to not up your taxes, which is, I was paying a bunch of taxes in this town. And I think the taxes are high. So with the cost of everything else going up, the last thing that somebody wants to hear is that their taxes are going up point something percent because the trash is going up. So what do? Do you try to put a little more on this part of it and not go up a percent or a half or 0.75% on your taxes? Or do you try to make up with it this way?
Yeah.
It's one of those things. You know, it's got to be.
Well,
I used to be in business, but I know when it's bleeding out money and it's not being covered by something, it's a hole. So you're bleeding money through somewhere, and then if it's not going to be made up, you're still bleeding out money. So just one of those things. I have a business sense, and I look at it business-wise, and I know what it's like to be taxed because I was paying taxes here not too long ago. And so does it get do the taxes get raised because everything else has gone up for getting rid of your trash? Or do we put another fee on, like paper bag or whatever? But I mean, that's like I said, a discussion for another day, and we'd be here till midnight.
Mr. Chair,
Don, yep.
this discussion could, like you said, it could go on till midnight if we make it broad
But
enough.
for the point of why it's actually here tonight is we requested it.
I know, and I'm thinking that we need to find an ultimate decision whether we need to make that down the road after addressing that whole subject. If we are a service, what percentage of the service do we want to pay for the town? What percentage of it do we want to put on the taxpayers as a whole? And that we need to resolve down the road. But I think in the meantime, we can see our prices are going up. We know we're way in the hole. If we go by increments right now and increase these fees as is indicated here, we've kind of indicated which direction we're going in wanting to collect more money, and at the same time, we haven't made a decision long term. So I think that's probably a good thing to do. I do have a question about
where we're at now versus looking at the full picture is what you're saying.
Yes, and I'm also thinking that I have a concern about the rate, the $30 for individual sticker. I don't have a question about that. What I do have a question about is the second vehicle. And if I can go on with that a little bit. I did some math, and last year we sold about 3,000 permits in this year, and about 10% were sold as second vehicle permits. So I understand this is quite a reduction from the second vehicle permits that were originally issued back when we were free or cheap. So in doing the math, we would have raised about $75,000 from the permits at the $25 rate. In raising it to 30, that's about $90,000, and I think it'll generate a good amount of grumbling on the front end again, as it always does. So I'm thinking that second vehicle permit, which was a big deal for some people way back when, because my wife goes this way and I go that way and we both work and all that. I'm thinking that the second vehicle could be a reduced fee at $15, and actually we'd raise about $95,000 that way doing that. And we still, yes, you're going to get some grumbling, but yes, you're going to get a reduced second vehicle fee if you want it. So that was my thought. And I know it's not the ultimate fix. I too think that throw per bag, the bag thing.
Paper bag.
Yeah, paper bag. That's it.
It's cheaper
is
than
probably the alternative that will help us come closer to covering more of a percentage of our expenses than we do now. But I
might disagree.
So
I might disagree. The fact is, you close to any non-residential trash, you may get to the same place as what the savings from a paper bag would be. Because the fact is, you're not handling all this OBW waste and all the shingles and everything else that we're not set up for with the scales. The fact is, we don't know. Again, the Finance Committee hasn't even had a chance to even scratch just the surface. Look at those alternatives independently, because to come in with a presupposition that one application is going to fix the entire thing is probably laughable.
right.
I do have a point. I think that there is there's a concern if we do it in a paper bag, they're going to push more people to recycle, which seems like a good idea, except that right now recycling costs more per ton than the regular trash. So you're going to increase your costs instead of decreasing them. So you can make the problem worse with paper bag if you're not careful. So I think we really need to look at getting those recycling costs down, and whether it's a temporary thing with China or whether that's a permanent change in how we're going to have to run the program. I think we may need to look at if we can sort out the stuff like the glass that's really heavy and doesn't cost money. That
a reversal of the single
right,
stream.
Or,
a reversal of the single
construction materials, all that sort of stuff that costs us a lot. I think we need to look at both sides of the revenues and the costs.
Yep.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So I think that going back to what we heard a little bit earlier, which is taking a look at where we're bleeding the money out in the business that we have, and looking at it as a business, I think is a good idea. We know what parts of the waste costs us money to get rid of, or costs us the most money. So we have to start looking at that seriously, and I know the Finance Committee is going to take this on. But I think we have to look at those and decide whether or not we want to be in that business any longer. And if we look at it as a whole, and we take away the things that are costing us the money, then I think it becomes doable to say, what can we keep? What is it that we can still do here in town? And then we can talk about a fee structure that would make it so that whatever fees we can collect would make it so that we're at least even every year, if not having a little bit to the positive versus the alternative, which is constantly bleeding out. So I think that's where I land, and I hope that we can land. And I'm sure that'll be a big change for a lot of folks when you're used to kind of going and dropping off, whether it's shingles or whatever. If that's a change in behavior for some people, well, a change in behavior for some people at the gate is better than a change in behavior and paying for each of your bags and the investment to the community. Because I think I remember hearing $1 million quote to get the truck rolling, if I remember that right, Randy. Keep me honest if I'm wrong there. So there's a lot of upfront costs that would look pretty damn ugly if we had to get into alternatives. So just something to keep in mind, but I'm glad that.
If we went curbside, it's $1.3 million just for the labor part of it. We have to buy the truck and we still have to pay the tipping fees. We've got nowhere because we're still paying the tipping fees now, and we're not on the hook for a truck, and we're not paying the $1.3 million for curbside.
Yeah.
So that's not even in the scope anymore.
And well, when we're looking
that taxation would go way up.
When we're looking at down the road too, we need to pay attention to what other towns and cities are doing. They affect us. Topsom, Brunswick, any of them. A lot of them have pickup. A lot of them don't. A lot of them charge the second you put something that's not in the trash somewhere. They charge you. So
Brunswick just closed their landfill too.
Right, and I think we need to be a service, to some degree. But is that a 10% service, a 50% service, or what? So that's worth thought down the road. In the meantime, we have to do something.
The alternative is anytime we make changes like this, I think we saw it when we did just change the dump pass and the cost, the random trash showing up in back roads, or people having more and more trash where Dennis has to go out and visit them because they got 47 bags of garbage lying beside their shed or house. These are all things that,
Those concerns came up the last time we raised the fees $10. You know what I mean? And on my end, where I have to pick the trash up from out of town, from around town, that doesn't happen. You got an occasional thing that fell off their vehicle maybe or whatever, but there's no piles of trash anywhere. I mean, because we'll go through it with a fine-tooth comb and find out who it is and bring it to PD, you know what I mean? So that old thing that people said, you're going to find trash up on, by Campbell's, you're going to find it out on Hewden Road, Ferry Road, Webster Road. No, that doesn't happen.
Cassie?
Can we go back to the whole hauler thing?
Yep.
About if we were to eliminate them, what do you think, based off from what you saw on the slips, what do you think the impact would be as far as...
Oh, it's huge. I'd have to get you with today's prices. I can get you that number and email it to you all.
I'm just curious that if we were to eliminate allowing residential or non-residential haulers to come in, what that might look like as far as revenues versus expenditures.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Randy, are you capable of taking another 300 to 400 people on a Saturday?
I don't know.
These people, odds are, would actually just start hauling the trash. So you'd have to be prepared for,
I don't think
these
so.
300 to 400 people.
I
Why
think
would
people
they?
are so used to convenience and they like the idea of having somebody come and get their trash that when they're going, yeah, their fees might go up, but it's no longer a taxpayer problem.
Again, what I would offer on that is the fact is we're now playing in an environment that we have settled with our finance committee to compare options.
Absolutely.
I would not want to actually live in that. I would like to have them vet rather than make a knee-jerk reaction. But what I do appreciate is it is an option to be able to explore. Right now, back to the point of order for here, we ask for this because Diane needs the revenues to be able to set the budget. We need to make a determination if we're going to do anything with that. That said, Randy and Diane have done some number crunching on why this item was placed on tonight. Diane, why don't you bring us up to speed on that? This was basically something that we've been looking at for the last 3-4 years with $50,000 increases on the tipping fees.
Mhm.
So why don't you guys bring us up to speed on Kurt brought it up at the workshop, so why don't you frame that?
Right, so at the workshop, Kurt wanted us to get a breakdown of what it costs us to dispose of our trash, and we did that last week. And as a result of that, we are not going to have to raise it by 50,000 this week. We're going to keep it this year, we're going to keep it at the 305, based on the tonnage that we have right to date.
So that said, Randy, if that pressure is off and we're keeping status quo and it's still based on last year's number, there is no increase in the solid waste budget.
That's correct.
Does that change any of your revenues on this side if we're still trying to maintain, not to try to actually cover more of that loss for service to Fern's point, but if we're status quo, do we need to increase revenues this year?
Like I said, even at where we were last year, we're still in the red, so it doesn't, that
Right,
doesn't.
agreed,
Right.
but we're not going further behind, we're not
Right.
getting any better.
We're not getting any better because the rates are going up.
Okay.
So the rates compared to last year are still going up. Our OBW and everything else has already gone up.
Recycling too, right?
MSW, huh?
Recycling as well.
Recycling as well is not, there's no dividends. There's no money coming back, not like it used to be.
Okay.
So,
I will publicly say the fact that I understand the approach that Randy's put to the commercial hauler part. I'm not prepared to actually make that sweeping approach without hearing from the finance committee after that task has been exhausted. That said, I also read the resident increase going from 25 to 30. I understand where Don's coming from on that second pass. I can be appreciative of that. I also would interject again, Dan Lehman specifically mentioned it during the workshop, the fact that seniors, if we could actually keep a different rate for seniors associated with this, because they're not the ones that are typically generate that amount of trash, that you're at least sensitive to somebody that would actually be in that camp. What I put in my note associated with that is if we're considering going to $30, the senior rates stay at 25, in my opinion. And the fact that we're not increasing it for the seniors this year. That said, that's just me. One of the other things that I asked Randy and Diane for, I have this. Diane, can you send the fee schedule to the entire council too?
Yes.
One of the other things that I looked at, because I'm familiar with it from my environment in Lewiston, is one thing that we want to make sure is the rates that we're charging are actually covering our disposals. I was going down through looking at, we haven't increased the cost associated with refrigerators and all of the other incidental stuff, and I don't remember ever doing it sitting here, so it's at least 6 years, probably closer to 10 for an adjustment. But for the public, or dot above Randy's head there, just a fee on a refrigerator at $10, our cost is covered. This is where we pay $8 for it, and then it actually goes in the trash associated with that. So the fee that we're actually incurring is actually in the handling, so we're at the net even. We're not going further behind on that item. You go down through the rest of the list. Tires looks like a push that we're not actually behind, so the fee structure is actually realistic there. The one that I don't see, Randy, that was on here, propane tanks seem to come right off the list. We pay significantly more when you get into it in Lewiston, because I provided them Lewiston's fee schedule if I get stuck getting rid of this stuff. TVs, that's a reasonable charge based on what we're having here, but I think propane tanks, it may need a little bit of adjustment.
Okay.
But where I would go with that for tonight's discussion is anybody prepared to be able to make a motion on any of these rates that you see before you to be able to make a better vote than what we did when we came in the building tonight? I'm not in that mindset, in my
Mr.
opinion.
Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to put us on record at least, and I would like to make a motion that we approve these as written with the modification that I recommended.
Okay.
If there's a second out there, fine. If there's not,
Okay.
fine.
No, it's good.
I'll second that.
So you would accept his as presented with the amendment to what Don has
Right, the
offered
second
for
vehicle.
second vehicle.
Yep.
Okay. Any
And the
other
reason, for discussion, the reason I say that is because I believe this is an interim, and that we need to do something to show that we're doing something. And they've done some analysis, and I see the analysis, and I don't think it's wrong. I agree with you about the commercial haulers, but I don't think that's a decision we can make right this second. But we can indicate what we're doing by raising their fees. So that's why I made the motion.
by all means. By all means. And you got a second for the motion. The question I have is to Twyla now. Point of order. If this actually gets voted down, the fee structure stays the same and there's no action, correct?
I don't have another motion. That's the first motion
Right.
for
No.
those fees?
If this motion fails,
Oh, yeah,
there's
then
no
you have
change to
nothing
the fees.
changed.
They stay as is.
Correct,
You'd have
no
to
change.
change a different
That's the
one,
point.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the options on the table right now.
Correct.
That's all I was asking for.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions, concerns? It's slightly different than the way we typically do it, which is the motion for discussion, because I wanted people to be able to temper this, to be able to have it play out, partially because of the listening dot, and partially for the benefit of the Finance Committee that are also watching this tonight. That said, all in favor of the motion to accept as presented by Randy with the amendment by Don for the second pass? All in favor? Opposed?
2, 3, 4. Was that 5?
Mhm.
And
Opposed?
2? Okay.
And my throwback from the Finance Committee in Lewiston, the fact that the reason I would actually support that is I don't see the immediate need with the adjustment in the budget. I would rather have this play out through the Finance Committee to give us better informed decisions. And we've heard, I know she's heard, several of those options because she's heard them from Randy. And there was another one mentioned associated with the private haulers. So have them marinate all that, but that passes. The motion is actually
5-0. I mean, 5-2.
5-2.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
This has actually been kicked down the road for, 10 years now?
Right.
I would like to actually see the council actually put a deadline, even for the Finance Committee, working with the council to come up with a firm resolve to this, and not it be 6 months from now, but I'm talking like in a 3-month.
Before we get into the next budget season,
I'm
for sure.
talking before we even get through the end of summer, that we actually come up, we have plenty of time within a 2-month period to actually come to grips with this and actually can make a decision what we're going to do. The idea of kicking this out 6 months, a year, 2 years, 10 more years is not going to solve any problems. It's not going to help Randy. It's not going to help the town. It's not going to help the taxpayers.
Yep.
I mean, and with the options going in from the Finance Committee, everything from the idea of just shutting the whole transfer station down to the idea of limiting it to just per bag for people coming in or extending services, whatever we got to do, I think we actually have to make a decision. It's really foolish for us as a council that every year we bring this up for the last 4 years and we haven't done a damn thing. So all we keep doing is pissing people off every year, and that's all we're gonna do. I mean, this vote tonight is gonna piss off everybody that comes to the front desk and buys a new sticker. It's gonna piss off every commercial person coming in that hauls in. So I mean, all we've done tonight is actually just make a bunch of taxpayers unhappy and not actually solve the problem that we've had at hand for the last 10 years. But again, just my point. We just need to come up with a deadline to actually try to solve this and put it to rest, because all we've been doing every year is just pissing people off. So,
what I would offer on that, Fern, it would be the fact that, and I know the liaison and chair sitting here as well too. It's their number one goal, and partially the timing of when the finance committee to be able to start. Norm, and then we're going to have Heather speak if we could.
So I just think from where I'm coming from on this, I think we know that the whole reason, one of the reasons why we wanted to get a finance committee in place is to tackle these things, to your point, where we continuously sort of, it comes up, it flares up, we put a Band-Aid on a bullet wound, and we move forward. I think that tonight, hearing the fee structure and understanding why Diane and Randy brought it forward and the need to do so, but it feels very kind of silly to do it, because when you're bailing a sinking boat with a teacup, it doesn't feel like you're making a whole lot of remedy to go from a teacup to a coffee mug. And that's really what we're doing. So, big scheme of things, I think that we have to look at it as, while I know it's going to aggravate a lot of taxpayers, it pissed a lot of taxpayers off. Last time I went from $10 to $25, when they actually got informed and sat down and decided to not bury their heads in the sand and just think that $10 dump passes are going to be a thing for, in perpetuity forever, and realize that this stuff costs money, and by the way, we're hemorrhaging it all over the place. And then when the proposal of the paper bag came up and everybody saw how much that was going to cost, $25 didn't look so bad anymore. $25 was pretty damn sweet. So to Don's point, I think it's a smart move. If we were just going to go with what Randy proposed tonight, and I'm not putting you on the hook because you proposed it, Randy, but if we would have went to 30 and it would have been 30 for the next car, Don's actually saves him a little bit of scratch on the back end there. So I think for now it's a good stopgap. And for the commercial haulers, I realize this is going to be a huge change in business for them. They're going to have to go back and look at their own models and understand, and it's not in a vacuum. They have families that they feed. They have long-time customers that they serve. They've served this community for a long time in some cases. So, and I don't think any one of those commercial haulers are bad people, but there's something that we have to say, how do we stop the bleeding? And that has to be shouldered by the folks that make the money off it, make the living. That means they have to pass it down to their customers. Well, that's something that's going to have to, they're going to have to decide on business by business determination on what they want to do. I don't want them to feel like they have to do that, but at the same time, we can't just keep going the way we're going and expect things to get better. It's not. So I'm glad that the Finance Committee, I'm going to defer to Heather now to see what the plan would be. But to your point, I think that we should have some sort of time frame, but I would like the Finance Committee to identify that on something that they're comfortable with. They have a staff, just like we're not going to be here but one meeting a month this summer by our choice. I don't know what their plan is as well, but I think that doing something realistic and not saying let's have this thing go out 12 months. I agree with you there, but I'd like them to define that for us.
I totally understand. One of the things that even, moving fee structures around, I mean, the people that actually have 2 cars, really their fee's not going up this year. Right? So, I mean, really, we took 10% of the people and then we're not gaining anything from it. Nothing. Really, might as well just said leave it the way it was, right? I mean, in a sense.
It's all about the impression on the front end.
It's an impression, but actually you're taking the other people that have single cars and actually increasing theirs, and you're taking the people that have 2 cars and saying, well, it's going to keep yours the same. I don't know. It's one of those things where I'm kind of a person that likes to be equitable across the board, and unfortunately, I don't always.
Mr. Chair, I think we've beat this to
Hold
death.
it right here.
Well, to this point, I'd like to turn it over to the chair of the Finance Committee. Let her have a moment. Heather, if you would.
Thank you. So it was very helpful to me that we can then share with the Finance Committee on the expectation. The timeline, I would like to address that. I think 2 months, given that we only, at this time, only meet once a month, is a little bit aggressive. However, I do also appreciate and respect that we don't want this to drag on more than it already has. But in order for us to have the due diligence, I would ask for a little bit of a more reasonable timeline, considering that it's been, years with that. So
It's only been 10, 15 years since.
right,
the issue,
right.
but
He wants to
it's not-
fix it in 2 months. So so I, just want to express that. And then the other thing I want to make sure that I understand again is the council's position on whether or not this is a service or if this is a real fee for structure, a revenue generating.
Let's not form it in
Position.
the form of a motion, but let's play a straw poll. Who sees this as a form of? Is it supposed to be part of your taxes, or is it a volume? If you generate more, you should be paying more. Should it be a fee? So, was that clear what we're looking for here? Who believes it's part of their taxes?
That's the way it's always been assumed, but
Is it reasonable?
not no more.
Yeah.
It's not practical
Right.
anymore.
I thought we were doing the
But-
poll right
okay,
down there, because I don't think that's
just-
reasonable, yeah.
Just a straw poll. The fact is, it's, for the show of hands again, for the finance committee that are watching here, part of your taxes. Okay,
It's 5.
but there's a
That
flavor.
doesn't mean
It is
totally
5.
part of your
Right.
taxes.
Okay,
Right.
yeah, I was gonna, Mr.
Yeah.
Chair, I was
Yeah.
gonna say this, it's kind of like a false choice because
Yeah.
like right now it's a mixture of both. And
That's,
if the finance committee came
That's
up
where
with
we're
a
at.
plan that still, it was a good plan, that still had that mixture of both, like I'd be totally supportive of that.
okay.
And-
Yeah, I support a hybrid.
Okay, to that point. Now, service, you paying more for your volume. The fact is, so that would be 2?
Absolutely.
No, but the hybrid that Jeff is actually, it's the mix between the two. I think everybody's going to land there. It's the fact is, there's going to be a base fee that everybody's going to pay that's based on your taxes, so you're not going to gouge. And if you're going to have more volume, then you're going to pay for more as you go.
Yep.
Does everybody land in that camp?
And then to one step beyond that is if we're identifying to what Randy was talking about earlier, if we identify, okay, we're willing to go up to this point and it's part of the taxes, we can keep it legit. Then after that, things that we're taking now or services that we're providing that we're losing money on going in the red, then we have to look to our neighboring communities, who does this? And it allows that person, that me as a taxpayer to take that on and say, okay, I'm generating more. This is commercial grade stuff. I guess I got to go dump this in Auburn now, because and I pay for that out of my own pocket because that's not part of my expected fee for my taxes that I pay in my hometown. That would be the
Heather,
way.
any more questions?
No, that was it. Thank you.
Yeah, it's just one
And
thing.
then back
One
to
of
Don.
the things that I think is important too is to understand is tonight, a lot of what we're talking about is our expenses from getting rid of the waste, right? And one thing we haven't even talked about is the operation of the thing, right? The trash trucks we buy, the box trailers we buy, the forklifts we buy, the loader we buy, the manpower. I mean, if we even broke it down to the point where our operational costs are tax base and everything we take in for services is actually expended, I mean, that may be a way of breaking it up, but we would never be able to separate those. Because if you were to just look at that department as a whole, I mean, just take away any trash. Okay, nothing comes in. It's just the manpower, the heat, the electricity, the sewer, the trucks, the tractors. I mean, that's still, what, several $100,000? Oh, yeah. So what we're talking about tonight is not even the operation of the service. It's basically just the trash that comes in and comes out. So we could actually separate that in the sense where, yeah, taxpayers takes care of the operations,
Just having a
but
service.
everything that comes in and goes out actually has to be paid for. That's correct. You know what I mean? So,
Well, that's
Yeah,
that's
but
why I
it's-
was saying, Mr. Chair, that's why
Yeah.
I was saying that we have to decide what percentages belongs to the taxpayers and what belongs to the
Agreed.
people that are users.
I mean, you guys have heard it from me as long as I've been sitting in this chair. The fact is, when it's a $100,000 increase, we're losing pace. It's the losing pace that we're reacting to. Yes,
Yeah,
Heather.
and I would just say that the operational costs, what are the incremental costs based on the trash? So we need to understand that as well.
The mix.
big package.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, Mr. Chair?
Yep.
I've been sitting here listening to this discussion for the last 10 years. And every year I hear, well, when we get out of budget season, we'll discuss it. So believe it or not, I'm firmly in firm's camp over setting a deadline for us. And if we can come up with a deadline that's agreeable for the Finance Committee tonight, I'm all about that.
And I'm not looking at 2 months. I mean, that's
and
just
I had,
what we just
and
said.
I
It's
had,
very aggressive.
and I had October at first in mind. Because
What I would counter with, Don, is the fact that I blame COVID because the fact is I was the one that actually retracted. We've had people willing to volunteer for a finance committee since last spring. I put them in a holding position because I didn't want anybody meeting when everything else is going on.
Well,
In
that's
that
okay.
regard, that we did achieve the goal to be able to address it, and then this hit associated with that. Now that we've got a group of people, one of the things that I am sensitive to, and I know our liaison is, I don't want them to flounder. It's not lost on us if we're going to push reset and reintroduce a finance committee. I want them to be able to get the tools they need to be able to succeed, or we've achieved nothing.
Well, is October 1st enough?
I would put it to her because
That's
in that
what I
regard,
am
her
doing.
and Kurt to be able to give us a timeline that makes sense associated with that, because quite frankly, they got a good win to be able to set their goals and then budget. This is the first time coming through. It's not a lost on me when we're playing the Brady Bunch lineup. You look at the vacant stares of what I'm sitting through on a one-man hostage situation on me discussing a budget. I don't care for the listening public from the finance committee's perspective. They are at least understanding all of the energy that is put into these budgets that they are actually now weighing in on as volunteers. Just going through that exercise is actually going to pay off as they start to see it. Now we're having a discussion with Randy on specific topic on the solid waste. They've seen it going through the budget. They know how big of an issue it is because they've heard some of the dialogue here. Just going through that process is going to pay off in the future years as they move forward.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I would just like to ask Heather real quick, if I could, how much data have you guys gotten on this at this point?
So we've received presentations on the paper bag, on the
Curbside?
the scales, as well as the curbside. So those were the three major areas. And then I think, and we've also received the unit costs, of what it costs by type of disposal.
Randy, do you feel like at this point, and Diane as well, do you feel like the data that's been provided to them is enough, or is there more that still needs to be provided? Or Heather, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so I think that's on the revenue side. I think the expense side is an area that we really need to dive into more.
That's why I want to kind of bring it to the surface tonight to say, what is it that you need? To Dawn's point, I think the timeline might be just a skosh aggressive by maybe 30 days. I was thinking that in order for, to Alan's point, to set you up to be successful as a committee, I think that you get the data, but you need some time to play in the mud, get into it, and really kind of, what is it that you want to kind of suss out and see what makes sense and what doesn't, and start adding some things up and saying, well, here are some options. I think that if we look at that and say, getting out of the budget season that we're in right now, getting into the summer, I'm sure we'll set a schedule, whatever makes sense, if there's going to be any meetings at all over the summertime. Well, I'm sure that was something we'll talk about. But to that point, when September comes around, I feel like even if there is some data that gets gathered over the summertime, the June, July, and August period, and that gets sort of preliminary or a cursory look, by the time we come into September, it would be hitting the ground running, having that data ready to go and really start to tear into it, so that we get to the October meeting, starting to maybe put some ideas together and talk it out. So when we hit November, there may be some talk of, we're starting to flesh it out, we're pretty close. If we're not ready in November, definitely by December. Do you feel like that? I know I'm.
Yeah, I mean, that seems, that's giving us the grace of the summer, so
Right.
I appreciate that. And I think that what I would propose to the Finance Committee that meets on Monday is that we actually have a more aggressive schedule in the fall, where we're not meeting just once a month, we're probably meeting weekly on this topic, so that we can turn it around more reasonably.
I like that. I was using the once a month, but certainly good. So I feel like that. Does that sound good to council? If that's something that seems reasonable. I don't think there's an end game of December. If she's proposing that they meet a little bit more consistently throughout the fall months, we may meet that timeline that you're hoping for. Not so much October, Dawn, but maybe at least early November.
The end of October.
Well, the reason I brought up October is because there's a change in this body, which gets thrown to the new body to decide, and I'm thinking that if we can, under the current regime, make a decision, it would be nice, whether it's October 1st or October 15th or October whatever.
We don't get kicked out of the seats till December, right?
First business meeting in December.
You guys through November.
Yeah.
Okay.
No lame duck.
So
No revolving
if
seats.
we planned for a presentation or a recommendation by the beginning of November, that would cover any
That'd be
change in.
And Mr. Chair, that to Norm's point, coming up
Thank
with
you.
some alternative proposals so that when the planning board makes a recommendation, it's not felt like it's shot down if we don't agree totally. If there's some couple of alternatives, ways to go that make sense for you, then it becomes our decision on which one to take.
We can be prepared to
And if
offer
you have
scenarios. Yep.
If you have baby steps, Heather, in that regard, realize that any change that's actually made has probably got a public input piece of this too.
Yeah.
If you know that clearly that we're leaning towards a certain thing, if you can get us that sooner than later to be able to have that public before that time frame, that would be huge.
So that goes back to the October 1st.
Just trying to play counter. So to Dawn's point, its effect is 6 years sitting here, the one most attended meeting was we had 100+ people sitting in this room. We talked about this topic in general. Your mom was front and center. Not lost on her son-in-law. Yeah. But that's the real point.
So maybe you do want to wait after December.
No, that wasn't good. I'm not that bright. Sharon will be the one to tell you that. In fact, but it is a very real topic that impacts everybody in this community, and it will bring people out to be able to express their opinion. Where I'm going to land on that is the fact that this decision will have more people in attendance on June 22nd when we open up the public hearing and vote on the municipal budget. Be prepared. They will be here that night. It won't be as a quick get in, get out kind of approach, because this will be on the public record. Anything else on this topic? God help us. Move on, Twyla.
Before we move on, I just
Yes.
want to remind you that it's 9 o'clock.
That's what. God help us. Move
Half
on.
the meeting pretty much left to do, and an executive session.
Don't bring the rain. Let's go.
I'm just being.
Twyla, all you.
All right. So we did vote on that last motion, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we are on Order 2021-101, Downtown TIF Designation.
Hello, everybody. It's me again.
Hey, long time no see.
I haven't gone too far. All right, so as you know, we've been working on a lot of the parking lots in town. We've done the one behind Rusty Lantern. I helped Mark out with the Parks and Rec. Now I am on Booker Street. Booker Street is going to take a little more than what we thought because the retaining wall that separates our property from the sausage kitchen, there was a reason why they put fill on the other side of the wall because the wall was no good. So when I exposed that to start excavating for the parking lot, the wall is like this. So we ended up having to buy some more block, concrete block. If you guys have a chance, go down there. I placed probably a good 50 or 60 or so blocks today alone. Built the whole back wall, part of the side wall towards Bowers, and now we're going down the side near Rogers Insurance, the old shampoo insurance or the old bank. That being said, it's looking real good. So there was a couple of extra steps we had to take, like fill in between the two walls with crushed stone, so it allows that other wall to move without affecting our wall so much, because it'll collapse the stone instead. So to date, we had Marafi, 5 rolls of Marafi, the concrete blocks. It's all spelled out for you. The equipment rental. To Alan's thing, I am going to probably go over on my equipment rental, by the way, so just FYI.
Be prepared, right?
And, the roller, dozer, gravel, stone, and that doesn't even mention that we had 1,800 yards of reclaim on the books from Pinewood Road that we got from Gendron Aggregate that was still owed to us, so that's zero money. So these parking lots are getting done for a fraction of the cost. So I recommend that we I'm asking for $28,557.25, but that does not include the fence that's gonna have to go on top of this wall now, because before it was a slope bank with a bunch of trees, now it's a 6-foot drop. So, probably the next meeting or so, probably gonna have another memo sent out to you guys where we send out for bid. I don't think it's gonna be a lot. We might not even have to go that route. We'll have to get bids, of course, but, it should be, in my expertise, probably be around $2,500. Put a 4-foot high chain link, all black, on top of the caps that are on top of the blocks. So it'll be
Randy,
nice.
can I just ask on that?
Huh?
Can I just ask on that, after we had issues with the last and you ended up bailing us out on that, would it be just simpler to, does your crew have the ability to just buy the materials? I'm cutting to the
I hate
chase.
being the fence guy of the town, you know? I got so many other things to do.
I know, but we didn't get anybody to bite last time. That's my point.
Yeah, we'll see if what happens. If we get nobody to bite, then I'll probably
Okay,
be forced
that's
to do
what
it.
that's what I'm advocating.
Yeah.
The fact is, okay.
I've got
You
the
are
rec
the fence
department
guy.
wants me to do their fence. I got police department wants me to do their fence.
Hey, when you're good at what you do, Randy, that's all I'm saying.
Hey, I build parking lots a lot easier, and it's in the machine, so there's no digging holes by hand.
Randy, is it just not unrealistic that we just add a dollar amount to this so we can actually get this wrapped up and just keep
Yeah, that would,
moving forward?
you know,
I mean,
if
that's-
you allocate, I'd say
35,
Yeah.
40.
Yeah.
Where's the figure?
Yeah,
go with
between $25 and $3,500, you'd be
No,
fine.
35 grand.
Yeah.
In fact,
Oh.
it's
No, I hear what
I
you're
thought
saying.
you meant the fence. Between
35 grand because you got
to.
28.
Yeah, you'd be fine.
I'd make a motion.
Yeah, it's
that we
28.5, you're
actually
saying
allocate-
25 for the fence, so just jump it up to 35.
I got a motion right there.
Motion that we
Second.
allocate 35,000 from the downtown TIF to take care of these and get moving on.
Second.
And allow Randy to be able to go out to the bid. The fact is,
Yeah.
that way we're not holding his hands here. Because
Okay,
he's addressing
so
something that we all are looking
Not to
for.
waste much more of your time, but I do want to,
We're
it's
gonna
not,
vote first.
oh, shoot, go ahead.
I just have a discussion.
Yes, please.
Two things. One is that adequately protected right now? So it's a safety issue. Is it a safety issue right now? Or is that actually
Barriers
addressed?
up there, so we got it all taped off.
And secondly, my only concern about any fence we put there is snow removal at that usually was always just taken to the end of the parking lot, pushed over the edge.
We're not gonna be able to do that anymore because of the new tenant. I don't think she's gonna allow us.
So, I mean, that's not gonna be any of our doings. I just wanna make sure that that's
Not gonna
not
be
the
our doing,
application.
no.
And down the edge of Rogers too, that's not gonna be a concern either.
Nope.
I just wanna make sure whatever we put doesn't get actually taken down. We can
Nope.
actually put it more towards our side than the other side, so there's still a barrier there.
Yeah,
Can-
it's, the wall and everything is 18 inches on our property. And on the Bauer side, it's probably 6 feet on our property. It's on the tree line, not 3.5 feet off their building, which is what we own. I left them 11 feet for a parking spot. And then on the other side, on the Rogers side, we're on 18 inches off the line. So we're good everywhere.
I'd like to actually get a vote for the financials, and then I have one other discussion after it, so.
Okay. Any other items on this discussion? All in favor?
Would it
No.
pass 7-0?
Did you have another?
Yeah, the
Right, this
question
is-
on the parking lots,
Yep.
do we actually have to change an ordinance, or can we actually, is an ordinance in place so we can do it, so we can put signs up there that just say, no overnight parking, all the logistics of those lots that we don't want, you mean the idea, because the intention of those is daytime business parking. So I mean, and unfortunately, they're in areas that people could actually just park something there and leave it there. We're seeing trailers, we're
Oh,
seeing
sure.
everything in different areas, right?
Yeah.
So do we actually, is there an ordinance already in place that we can actually sign that so it can be monitored? So if there's a car
We'll
there
look
left
that
on
up. I
I believe we did
Where
that for
you've got
the other parking lot. I'm pretty sure I objected to the same objection that Fern had, I think, for the one behind, Main Street there. So I think there was something that we did in the ordinance.
Okay.
You can check it and see.
Yeah, I'll check it.
Yeah,
The
just to
question-
make sure, just, once we get those implicated,
Right.
we're gonna need to put a sign up there.
No overnight
As soon
parking.
as we put the no overhead parking. The downfall is there in areas that people actually have tight parking already? You mean?
I think you're gonna get a lot of the wintertime parking where we have, road closure,
Yep.
parking ban in effect. I think that's gonna be your overnight parking.
Potentially. I mean, that's one of those things we'll just have to address, that's all. But for summer use, I'd hate to just see it before, already in the morning, before people even get a chance to.
I think the other part, what you're talking about over at the municipal parking lot,
Yeah.
I think we did a week or 2 weeks, no longer than a week or two, because you have people that are living overhead that don't have any parking.
Right.
So
I
we
thought
didn't
we put a
limit it
trailer.
to overnight parking
We did it
because
some
of
kind
that
of limits. You
reason.
couldn't just leave a trailer or a car there for months.
Right, but I think it's either a week or two. We put a limit on there that they
But if it's
couldn't.
already protected, then it doesn't have to go to
Right.
ordinance. Randy's got the funding to be able to address both the fence and the signage for to
Signage
address
is
that.
cheap.
I just think it's going to be important that we make sure it's not overnight parking, because that's not what any of these areas are intended for. They're actually
Right.
for
No, but we
daytime.
can amend
yeah.
the ordinance and identify those parking areas and say that there's no overnight
But if we
parking.
don't need to, Randy's already on it.
And you can say on the signs, vehicle subject to towing. Not that you're going to, but you can say
Yeah.
subject.
Oh, it's the implied threat, yeah. I think we all know, because we talked about Main Street
Yeah,
and
yeah.
downtown area, that there's no towing happening, but,
Well, it gives you the right to do it.
yeah, exactly.
All right, my last thing for you guys, I just want to put this in your head, it's food for thought, but if you should probably act on it quick. The building that is available from New Gloucester, the salt sand,
Yep.
salt shed, say that 10 times fast. It's an 80 by 120, and I did get a quote on taking it down and reinstalling it here. It's $195,500. But a building that size is over $600,000.
Phew.
And going up.
The arches alone are worth $160,000. Just the arches inside. So, food for thought.
Does that include concrete?
Nope. I
So,
have to get
so
engineered.
195 plus concrete work
I got to get a plus concrete because I have to.
in sight.
Yep.
Concrete in sight.
So,
No, the timing is perfect on that, Randy, because that's next week with the list for the budget workshop. So
yep, just mull it around and
They're waiting
Hey,
for
and
an
you're
answer.
the town of
Gloucester.
New Gloucester's waiting for an answer of where we're moving with this. So,
And we
So,
just
in
got
your-
the figure yesterday.
In your experience on something like this, I know it's not something that happens every day, we take something down, put it back up, always worried about how, when it goes back up together, how's it gonna stay together, and it's gonna be worse off than it was.
it's metal sheets that are all screwed together.
Mhm.
And there's parlins inside that are all, that's what you screw it to. That's what holds it all together. That's the framework. And $15,000 of that's just the 2x6s alone, because we need 750 of them. Price of wood right now is through the roof.
Right.
So, and the plywood and everything else that goes along with it, because there's like 90 sheets of plywood that go along with this, and it's $60 a sheet right now. A little while ago, it was only less than $20 a sheet. But anyway,
don't disappear. Question, Diane.
okay.
Yeah.
How long will they wait?
I'll call her tomorrow, but she's been calling
We
me.
cannot
Chomping at the
vote
bit.
in a
I mean, I
workshop,
just,
but we can vote next meeting in
Our only
Right.
meeting.
the special meeting, correct?
Yes.
That may have to be added to the agenda if we're,
yeah,
because I'll float the idea, straw poll. If I can get something for roughly half of what it's there to be able to address something else that's actually been kicked down the road for an excess of 10 years, is anybody ill opposed to still considering this? Because we're talking fund balance money that we have available to address something. To Tracy's point from the school department is huge.
That's actually shipping and everything, transport, the whole.
We're
kit
going to
and caboodle.
assist in that. What I'm going to do is rent 2 flatbeds from Main Trailer, and with my trucks, I'll bring them to the garage, and I will take and offload with my equipment there. And that area that I just cleared out, I'll put everything in that area.
So you can have a total cost and everything for us, concrete and
I
everything.
can.
That'd be, yeah, that'd be
I
ideal.
guess the bigger question for New Gloucester
How
is,
long can they wait for us?
not only that, is are you gonna pay for the building?
What?
Yeah.
So they're gonna wanna know, I mean, I'm guessing you're not gonna wanna pay for the building, you're just gonna want them to give it
That's
to
that's
us.
part of what Randy's got to give us. The fact is, you need from them is what if our cost is 195 for the contractor, what are they looking for to be able to get out of it? Because at a certain point, the fact is $600 grand to build it. The fact is 195 to reassemble it and take it down and reassemble it. I'm still going to be $400,000 into this or $300,000 into this, no matter how we play it. So they need
I'd
to be.
start off low with like 10 grand. We'll offer you 10,000
Yeah.
for it.
But that's you two to be able to work out. Give us the budget because we're going to need that for
Okay.
next meeting. What I need to know is how long before. How much
I'll
time
tell her
can we get
tomorrow.
before?
I'll tell her a decision won't be made till next week.
Because
I'd say that we're definitely interested and that we're,
Yeah.
make
Yeah,
sure they know we're.
They can
supportive
push
of
as
it.
hard as they want. I gotta wonder how many dance partners that they have when the rubber meets the
Yeah,
road, or how much
exactly.
money. Because we're not talking about a small investment here. We're not talking about 10K and come pick it up.
Because the concrete cost too is going to be, you're talking probably going to be close to the $80,000 to $100,000 just for concrete.
Just say 100K for giggles, and so we're talking
Yeah.
talking half of what it
18-inch
costs for a
thick
new one.
wall, and it's got a 5-foot footer, and I mean it's an engineered thing. I got to work on that part of it, but
So just using that math, 300K, and that's just so half of what it would cost for a
Right.
new one. And even if we run a little over,
Yeah.
for whatever reason, we're still in a good place. If we think
Absolutely.
this thing can hold up for however long, I'm not going
but
to.
if they want $100,000 for it, we're done.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even offer that.
Yeah,
I'd go in
but-
at 10 grand.
You guys have what you need because the fact is that they're waiting on us to be able to give them an answer. We can't give them a definitive answer now until we know what some more of this package looks like.
They just
Which
want
you
the
clearly
building
have our
gone, I
attention.
know that.
They,
What was
might
that,
not,
Randy?
they must not have other buyers out there waiting.
I think they do have interest, but I don't know who's gonna be able to afford the 250K plus
Yeah.
to get this thing standing up on their property again. Who wants a 80 by 120 building?
Everybody thinks it's shiny and pretty if it look good in their backyard, but nobody's willing to open it. When it's time to open up the wallet, I think that's when it gets down to.
Best case scenario, Diane, you should have a commitment by by Wednesday morning next week.
Okay.
That would be my plan associated with. We'll treat it
Yep.
like paving.
Go from us, yeah.
Thank you, Randy.
All right.
That was huge.
Have a good night.
Appreciate it. Next, Twyla, where are we?
Under other business, council committee reports.
School.
You heard it all tonight.
Planning done?
Planning board meets the 15th, I think, and several items on the agenda. I haven't.
LDC?
Update coming up shortly in tonight's meeting.
Conservation, the meeting was canceled. They haven't rescheduled anything yet this month. County, nothing. Library,
Nothing new to report.
water.
No new meeting yet.
Finance committee, she left.
Burnham, yeah.
You skipped that.
I think we got the scoop, though.
Town manager?
Just one thing, we did the changeover for IT managed services yesterday. So everything, we had a few glitches, but it seems to be going pretty well, and they're very attentive. They get right back to us when we email them an issue, so, and we really like working with them.
You guys probably saw the email from Diane that she prepared associated with fishing. In that regard, that is, you guys may not be familiar with it, but it is a issue in municipalities where we're all out there on a public listserv. Anybody can grab the email and send these kind of things out. So what I asked, having seen it cost money in Lewiston, Diane to be able to make sure that staff get the appropriate training to be able to know how to respond to those kinds of things. So thank them for that.
Speaking of fishing and IT, we all saw the email regarding the Barracuda spam filter, I hope. If you haven't, if you've never used those before, take a moment and familiarize yourself. It's just what'll happen is a constituent email could sneak into this spam filter and hang out there and you're not aware of it. You have to go in every now and again and look at that and make sure what you see there is what should be there. If you don't want to collect the check from the Nigerian prince, that's fine. Leave that one there. But you may find that something from Dot Fitzgerald came through and you want to talk to Dot. So all you got to do is clear that in the spam folder and pull it over and it'll end up in your inbox.
Okay.
If you have any questions, I'm sure our new partners will give us a hand with that too.
Yeah, and everybody's aware of the weird email messages that recently happened, right?
The council, it's only affected the council for some reason.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, Alan.
I sent you nothing.
Stop emailing.
And you owe me $400 too.
I bought those certificates. Man. Yeah, nice guys.
We do training, we were doing training through Roundtable, so our staff is all aware of the phishing. But to my knowledge, nobody on staff has,
Received it.
well,
Because apparently I just sent it to
Kayla
these
did.
six.
Kayla received it, but nobody's using other staff's emails to do the same type of dissemination. It just seems to be targeting council for some reason.
Yeah,
Yeah, those,
the good news is
Alan and
all
Don.
those guys.
I hear
are
them all day at
gullible.
work too. I get like 5 or 6 a week. But being the purchasing guy, the fact is I apparently ask people to buy a lot of stuff.
It's all good. It's all good.
All right.
You know, we would help you out when you're really in trouble. Okay? Just to let you know, okay?
Right. Just not today. Anything else, Diane?
No, that's good.
Don, LDC update.
Okay. Well, the LDC, Fern and I are, whatever, the members, I think. And we realized that we wanted to keep the LDC, keep the council informed with what's going on with Warumbo. And because the lines are not always clear between the LDC and the town council and everything else that's going on, we wanted to make sure that everybody got current information. So what I have is drawings in an email, but I've kind of shortened it. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it's good detailed material. So, and the reason I don't have it on the website is because there will be it's planned to be a public session on the 26th of May, and on the 26th of May, I can't do it.
It's all good.
My hands don't work too well.
Yeah, he's on. He's on record as licking his fingers. That's a CDC violation.
Never got past his mask. I see.
You see what he did? Because I went after him too. That's not fair.
Do you have an
Don.
extra copy for the record? Maybe you could get me an extra copy for the record.
There should be one extra.
And I can make copies of the little things in the corner of the pictures if you can't read them.
You got yours right.
So, Dawn,
Yeah.
first question I have is, this information is going to be made public on the 26th. Is it premature because we're in a public meeting looking at documents to be able to ask Diane to put that out on the web
Yes,
prematurely?
it's premature.
Okay.
The idea is that the public session should get presented this information out
Okay.
there. It's not forbidden from anybody seeing it,
Right.
obviously.
Right.
But
it's a work in process.
Yeah. And the reason, too, is that you've seen the original renderings. Those renderings will also have an update, I believe, by the Brett just told me. We'll have an update to the LDC on the 12th, which should include a couple more renderings. One of them being a street view, because one of the comments from the LDC when they looked at all these pictures here was that they look kind of like, well, my view is they look like chicken barns, some of them there. And you're seeing them only from the top, and it really doesn't do it justice. So there's going to be a street view. There's also going to be a slight, I believe, a modification to the third scenario. That third scenario has 2 4-story buildings in it, and in that, I believe they're going to lower one of the to the third to 3 stories on the first building that's closest to the corner. There's also there has been a meeting with the Department of Transportation, and although nothing is really been shared with the LDC, nothing is cut in stone, but there are no no's that I know of out there for any of the possibilities that exist. It's too early to say how the DOT will ultimately feel, but a lot's going to depend upon who we have wanting to develop the property and to what degree. One question I had when I looked at it, and you may have had too, is that the 3 scenarios, one of them is more undeveloped, and the second one is kind of uses the current zoning standards as they exist now to develop the property, and the third one would require some zoning changes, basically for building height. There's a couple other things in there that require it. But So that's what's coming in the picture. And what was I going to? Oh yeah. So the council would not automatically be brought in again. He's worried about timeline. So the 12th, there's going to be these things come out. If the council would like to be part of the LDC meeting, it all can be viewed at the same time. And then if there's anything that comes from the LDC meeting that needs to be slightly tweaked, it can be done again before the 26th, which is the public meeting. And the reason that's being done that way is because we can only get so much out of these guys, and we can't push them 14 times to do the same thing. So it would be minor, anything that happens after the 12th, between then and the 26th. And the meeting that's going to be on the 26th is currently planned to be in a tent on Warumbo. I'm trying to get somebody to tape it, because I won't be there, but anyway. See if we can get some kind of tape or some kind of camera roll on that information so that could be posted for the other public, and maybe some more information, input from the public other than that one session.
If the council does attend the LDC meeting, we'll have to broadcast that, so everybody
Right.
can see.
Well, that would, yeah. Well, I don't know whether, if any more than 3 do, right? Yeah.
Once you hit 3, period.
Yeah.
She draws the line at 3, not 4. 3 is a public meeting.
4 is a public meeting.
No.
Is it 4?
3.
Yeah, I thought 4 was
It's
the quorum,
four.
and that was
Four.
the problem.
3, we're at dangerous territory.
Right,
so
right,
she's
it's
always
4.
actually had us at 3.
4 is the thing, yeah.
Right.
Well, whatever. Anyway, that's the LDC is planning on holding that meeting, so maybe somebody from the council wants to be representative.
5/5/12. Where? When?
It's a Zoom meeting.
Zoom.
Yeah.
It is a Zoom meeting?
Mhm.
So then you
It's Wednesday.
could
It's a regular
join
meeting
it.
day for the LDC.
Then it won't matter anyways.
Council could join and do a regular announced meeting and be public. If it's Zoom.
Yeah, then we make a public meeting
That's
to
what-
be recorded.
Dawn's, I think, talking about the one that's down in the Rumble in the tent to be videotaped, right? Or not?
Right. Yes. No. Oh, yeah. We're confusing that. What I was just thinking was that, and Brett was thinking was that we could get some video recording of that public session down there at the tent that is displayed and viewable later. That's what we were talking about.
It might be a way to just
But to Twyla's
figure out
point,
something live.
if there's more than 3 of us in
Right.
attendance on the 12th, you already need to be
Right.
taping.
Then we have to make that a public.
We have the same issue down there at the tent. Yeah.
At the Zoom meeting, we'd have to record it.
Can you-
We'd have to,
Can you request that Brett actually send the entire council the meeting for the 12th Zoom link?
Yeah.
Please?
Well, yeah.
Yep. Diane, Twyla, whoever actually
The
wants to field
other
that
thing
one.
I would bring up is one of the things that came up in our sessions, and every time it was talked about, was parking. And you'll notice in all the scenarios, it's mentioned in the first scenario, but it's in all the scenarios, that area on Canal Street, abutting the property where everybody's parking right now, essentially, is not designated as a parking lot. And when I asked about that, the question was, where is the parking? Well, there is parking close by, but not there. And the reason is because the ultimate goal is to sell this project to somebody that wants to develop it. And the designers that put these things together, very strongly feel that sellability and marketability is better done the way that they've presented it by not having surface-based parking right next to a public area. It's better to have something that's your focal point there. And these guys have some pretty good clout, so anyway, that's the vision there.
Okay. Anything else, Don?
No, and Fern, you were at the meeting, so.
Yeah, no, I mean, you gave an overview. There is a million different aspects on this, and as Don said, the parking was a big issue. We asked where the parking would, and they said they could park up on Main Street and walk down, which we're already parking on Canal Street to walk up. There's a lot of things to look at. I mean, not that they're not doing a good job, because they are, because, I mean, they're asking for what we asked them to do. I mean, if you look at the concepts, I think there's going to be as many opinions on this there is going to be about a trash service. So,
Yeah, I'm saving mine for 12.
yeah,
I'm
exactly.
saving mine for
Yep.
12.
Well, one of the
It's all going to be important input from everybody. That's all.
One of the things that has to be viewed with a great deal of interest is marketability. So we obviously, the point of the town is not just to have, you're going to hear every time, we want something on the tax rolls, we want something on the tax rolls, and make it a 90% park is not going to do that. But, so any developer wants something to develop, and it remains to be seen what's the best one.
We have stuff to look at, though. That's the most important.
Almost see the Burger King sign right on the corner.
Yeah. If you can't read those little write-ups, can everybody read the little stuff in the corner?
Yeah.
Because I printed them bigger if you need them, and I can run off copies.
Yeah. You said you have digital copies somewhere?
Yeah,
Do they live somewhere?
There is,
I'll send you an email.
Thank you. It has these renderings?
Yes.
Thank you, Diane.
just,
Council, Diane.
if you guys would,
I'm gonna send them council.
Council,
don't,
yes.
Too old for that one.
send them out too widely.
That's why I said council.
Yeah.
Because the rest is going to be coming out in two
Yeah.
specific events.
Put it on my face.
Anything else on that, Diane? On
Nope, that's it.
property tax assistance, Diane?
Yeah, so at the last meeting, somebody mentioned about looking into a program to help citizens with property tax. So there's two programs that are allowed by state statute. One's called a municipal property tax deferral for senior citizens. Reading down through that, there would be a lot of administration to that, and what you would be doing is under the if the property tax is deferred under this property, the lien established on the eligible homestead continues for the purpose of protecting the municipal interest in the tax-deferred property, but we would never be able to foreclose on it. We'd have to keep track of it, and then it would be paid off when the person died or passed away. So there would be a lot of administration. I did pose the question out on the municipal listserv, how many municipalities have these programs in place, and I think there was only 2 that had that municipal deferral program. Most of them had this other one called the Municipal Property Tax Assistant, but when all is said and done, I didn't find more than 6 or 8 municipalities statewide that had these programs in place. So this one here allows the legislative body by ordinance may adopt a program to provide benefits to persons with homesteads in the municipality, which will include renters, not just people that own homes. It includes people who rent property. And the municipality may choose to restrict the program to persons who meet minimum age requirements as long as the minimum is not less than 62 years. So they have to be at least 62, but you can impose a higher number than that. The requirement is the claimant has maintained a homestead in the municipality for a certain period of time as determined by the municipality. Provide benefits for both owners and renters, and then we have to calculate the benefits in a way that provide greater benefits proportionately to claimants with lower incomes in relationship to their property taxes and the rent paid. So you've got to actually develop a program, then it needs to be kind of administered the way general assistance is, because you need to get all the information on their income and then figure out if they're eligible or not for this program. So there's a lot of administration, and I didn't realize when I was looking at this, this also includes people who rent.
Yeah, I don't understand most renters don't pay property tax, but I mean, I guess.
I know, but you still have to include them.
Yeah, I mean, the initial question I think I had asked was, what programs are out there, and I think you brought them forward. I just don't know. This may be another option for the finance committee down the road. I think it's a broad, it's a big look, and maybe
there'll be a lot of work to implement those.
And I know we all want to go, but there are communities, I believe, like Falmouth and Yarmouth and some of the more affluent communities that do offer those types of things, but I don't know that they're related to. So to your point, I think this might be one for us to think about with the finance committee and say, is this something that they could look at? And this would be definitely something lower on the priority list. Not that those folks aren't a priority in this community, don't get me wrong, but I think right now we have some bigger fish we're trying to fry, so.
If we're gonna do it, we might as well do it right first.
Exactly.
Find out what the cost implement.
I'd like to say
How
also,
much it's going to cost us as a whole, as a community, to implement a program like this.
And we can look at what's available out there and then try to, if we have to, find a way to take an amalgam of what maybe is working in some more affluent communities with larger
And I've got
tax
all of
base.
their ordinances that they put together. Monmouth has.
yeah, so I was about to say Monmouth has adopted, so one of our finance committee
Yeah.
persons actually has experience with
Yeah.
this particular situation, so he'd be actually a
Yeah.
good person to be a resource on that.
Good.
Well, we've exhausted them through this session, so I would say that probably next term for the finance committee.
Yeah.
Because they've already got a list for goals for the coming year, and now you're throwing something at them.
Yep, no, totally agree.
2022.
Right.
Yeah.
Next
Keep,
item,
keep going, guys.
The next is the appointments, Order 2021-102, the LDC appointments. We noticed, or I did just a week ago, that there's a counselor seat that needs to be renewed to January 2022, and that would be Counselor Fellows. So we probably should reappoint him.
For the LDC?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
your term was up.
Make a motion that we appoint Dawn to the LDC to
22.
I need a second.
Opposed, no, I'm kidding. Second that.
They're one-year appointments. That's,
Oh,
so it'll be an annual kind of thing. We'll try to get it done in January.
Who is this Don Fellows person? Could you tell
Is he
us a
a
little bit
flight
about him?
risk?
He's got a great resume, I'm told.
He has a very long resume. It's all old stuff,
I
though.
don't agree with him much, but I like listening to him, so I guess we'll
all
get
in
him in.
favor.
7-0, order passed.
Thank you, Dawn.
Next item, 12.
Counselor Communications.
First out of the gate, next meeting for 5/11, we have a 6 p.m. workshop for the list and revenues, then the school adoption of their budget, and we just added the salt shed to that discussion as well. I'm assuming, Diane, I don't remember from last meeting, did we land with that as being in person? Because it kind of has to be a public, open meeting.
No, we're going to do it by Zoom because of the finance committee, because they're going to be weighing in on their recommendations as well.
But how's that going to work with Tracy and Rick with the different articles for Twyla's purposes?
They should be able to read them just fine through the Zoom. So we'll just read Article 1 to see what the town will authorize
So
for,
similar to what
and
we
just
did
keep
last
right on
year,
going.
We just go that
Can we
way.
hybrid?
Yeah,
You'll be fine by
Can we be
Zoom.
here and then they come in over Zoom as well?
I'm just trying to figure out we're looking probably 6-7 more people. Obviously, we're hitting the capacity we were at it
The
tonight.
problem
too.
is, if you're not 6 feet apart, and somebody ends up getting COVID, and we're here for a period of time, that means everybody in this room is going to have to quarantine, and that's not something I want to do.
What I mean is, so we have a
That's
room.
why we're not doing it.
We have a room here with doors that close. We have a room there with doors that close, meaning for the finance committee. So as long as they have resources in the form of a laptop, how many laptops do we have? We can, if we need to, we could run the Zoom link and they could be in these rooms. The finance committee could be in either room. That way we're still leaving capacity if somebody came to a public hearing and wanted to speak their piece, but we have our folks
Yeah, but
here.
I don't think you can do
be-
a Zoom and a.
Right, because
Camera
we have a town hall live stream either or.
Right.
We can either do that live and it's being recorded in the chambers tonight, or you do it on Zoom and you can't do both at the same time
Okay.
here.
So then we could use, let's just use the live stream then.
Zoom.
We can use that.
Yeah.
Zoom. We'll go that approach. That's where I couldn't remember what we landed. I just want to make sure that the logistics were thought out accordingly.
Yeah, you have to vote by roll call anyways for all your warrant articles, so
Right. So it'll be
there's no difference really.
Let's go that approach, and Twyla, when we send that out, just hit the masses for distribution, including the finance committee and the school people, to be able to get everybody that Zoom link.
Okay.
I wish we could have the 3-foot self-distancing like the school kids have.
That'd be
So then the next, for the listening dot, 6-8 would be the school referendum vote,
Yes.
and we have our municipal budget hearing and vote on the 22nd of June.
Right.
That gets
Right.
us through the next 2 months.
So those who want to absentee vote can call the town clerk's office today or tomorrow and request by phone. Absentee ballots will be mailed to them the day after you approve the budget. So if they do want to vote by absentee, and a lot did vote last time by absentee, that's an option that's available. We also have, we will have available handicapped accessible absentee ballots for the first time this year as well, and hoping to get that for June's election.
Perfect. Thank you, Twyla. Any other council communications?
If I may.
Yes, Don.
I just want to thank Diane, Randy, and the rest of the crew for putting up the banner for the Positive Change Lisbon. It's the graduates. Yeah, it's that time of year already. It's hard to believe, but do appreciate that, and nice to actually hear they're going to be graduating with a little bit more of a, I guess it's not normal, but it's actually more family friendly by the sound of things. So that's kind of nice. So, thank you.
Anybody else? Audience participation, I had nothing, Twyla.
Okay, so then it would be the executive session.
You weren't in the audience.
So order 2021-103,
Grouch.
are you all set?
Yes, I am fine.
Okay. Order 2021-103, to go into executive session for 1 MRSA Section 405-6A, personnel matters. When you come out, will you be taking a vote?
Yes.
So do you want to turn it back on? I'll reprogram it so that you can.
So don't we get a vote to go into executive session?
So
Yeah.
pause 3 minutes. Anybody has to hit the head. Don't you
I need a first and a second.
Yeah, right there, right there.
Fern, okay, Norm, and vote? 7-0? Okay, we stand adjourned.
I'm right behind you, boss.
To approve a one-year contract to expire on June 30th.
Light one off. Go ahead.
One more time.
Okay, make a motion to